Shalom. So I am going to just check my sound here to make sure things are okay. Didn't work, so let's try a little bit more. Work, so let's. Okay, I think that's working now. Okay, so I have been very weird Mormons and Mormon lobsters. So there's a lot. I noticed we don't have very many Mormons, and I don't know of any religious Mormons in the Peterson community, which I found curious. And so I've been digging into the whole Mormon thing, and I've made some Mormon friends, and I discovered a Facebook group of which has over 1,000 members called Latter Day Lobsters and Sorted Saints. And there's a very small channel with a podcast they tried doing, and they've been having LobsterCon for 3 years. And I made a friend who I'm introducing to John Van Donk and maybe some sort of estuary group going. And I've been looking into the various debates in the whole Mormon thing. And so there's this channel, Midnight Mormons, which all the videos get at least like 4,000 views, it seems. And they have fewer than 4,000 subscribers. So a lot of the people, um, a lot of the people were are not subscribing and still watching. And um because like Paul Vanderklay, his channel has like 20,000 subscribers and he gets 1,000 views. And I mean, I've been looking at other Mormon channels and stuff, and this particular debate between a Radio Free Mormon and Midnight Mormons. So Midnight Mormons are like this strange outside the church but religious Mormons type thing. And yeah, the whole like society and culture. I don't want to say too much about it because I don't actually know that much about it, um, and I'm still trying to learn. But I was going to watch this debate, and I figured, you know what, I will stream it. If anybody wants to come on and watch with me, um, please do message me. And I am going to interrupt this to make comments and stuff. So I feel bad for you if you don't like that. Uh, I guess I'll stream it on normal, but if you want to watch the actual thing, go to their channel and do it. I don't want to copyright strike. I don't think they'll copyright strike me, but I'm just I'm this is for purposes of commentary. If you want to watch their actual thing, go watch their actual thing, please. Okay, so, and yeah, do come on Discord, come on if you want to actually come on and talk. And actually, you know what? Here is how I'm going to do. I am going to say, I am going to send a link to one person. That way I'll be able to send it to else. Okay, so I also sent it. Okay, so I don't think anybody else is going to come on, but let's, if they do, they do, and let's watch and see. So the guy all the way on the left,
and we have
Kwaku. He's the African American gentleman. So he gets a lot of guff because being African American and being a Mormon, and people attack him a lot, and he attacks back. And that's part of the reason why I found this whole thing. So he's an interesting guy, Kwaku.
The esteemed RFM.
And I did send him an email asking if he wants to come on my channel. I also I'm probably going to be having some Mormon guests, so you'll see.
Woo. Oh, you poor guys. Oh, shit. Hang in there. I'm going to try to keep them calm.
I served in Buenos Aires, Argentina when the war in Iraq started. This doesn't even compare to that.
We're starting off hot. Not yet? We're streaming? Okay. All right, welcome everybody. We really appreciate you taking the time to come out here. We know the parking isn't easy and you had to wait outside, et cetera, et cetera. A
Mormon with visible tattoos. Okay. I'm guessing he's Mormon.
Housekeeping announcements. Bathrooms are in the back. You can, I guess they're just unisex at this point. But don't throw the lid down because everybody in here will hear it. It's just something in this building. So just be cautious with that. Water bottles. And please don't squeeze those frickin' things when you get nervous or angry because they also echo and will pick up in the audio. So be cognizant of that. Afterward, we're going to have Subway, cookies, chips, drinks in the back for fellowship. So hang out. He's liking that. As our pleasure. Our pleasure. The way this is going to work is I'm going to ask each side 4 questions. I'll be sitting here out of the camera, and I've read through the questions many of you guys have sent through either Midnight Mormon website or RFM. And your questions were great. And some of them, I mean, I was learning so much from both sides. But I had to kind of crowdsource, amalgamate the questions into queries that I thought would be beneficial. Beneficial for learning and beneficial for real expression rather than zing shots to try to ooh the crowd. Not really interested in that. So trying to make the questions useful, and additionally, this has been very difficult for the simple reason that these 3 gentlemen represent Mormonism. And you're talking about they represent nearly 200 years of information.
They don't actually represent Mormonism. I want to make that clear. Midnight Mormons, while I think Kwaku for a while had official sanction, I don't think he does anymore, but he is a religious Mormon.
And on the other side, we have RFM, and he represents not Mormonism. And so when you're asking questions, it really is an imbalanced load, because we could ask them something like, what happened in 1839 with Joseph Smith in his pantaloons? And how are they supposed to know? It's just a huge amount of information. So I tried to balance the questions out where each side are going to give heartfelt responses, hopefully informed responses. And the way it will work is I'll present one side a question. They have 8 minutes to respond. Then after that 8 minutes, the other side gets 8 minutes to add to whatever they want to say relative to what the first side said. And then it will go back to the original side, and they'll have 3 minutes to wrap it up. Then we go to the other side, and I'll ask them or him a specific question relative.
By the way, this is their most popular video, and I found references to it on. So apparently, there's a very active ex-Mormon community on Reddit and stuff like that. And so there's the Mormon Reddit, and then there's the ex-Mormon Reddit. But I also get the feeling that like there's a lot of like it's the ex-Mormons who are on the internet and saying things, and it's not, and like the actual Mormons are kind of missing from the thing. And part of this is, so the Mormon church is led by the LDS, which is the main Mormon church. There's a lot of denominations, small denominations, they're all tiny. So there's the main one, which that one is led by like 15 guys named the Brethren, and they're all in their 90s. Some of them might be in their 80s, but like they're all really old. And then there are the councils of the 70s, and like most of the 70s retire at the age of 70, but like the first and the second, so like the top 70s, so like the guys who are really, really top, they don't, and they're like all old too. So I really think they need to do the Catholic Church thing where there's a mandatory retirement at 80, partially because, frankly, I think that intergenerational handoff is useful, having emeritus people. And like, so they believe that the president of their church is a prophet, and they call him the prophet. And okay, so like the Pope, well, even though the Pope did retire, like you don't have to retire the president, but like at least retire. So he has two like counselors, and they're called the First Presidency, and then there's 12 apostles, and there's the oldest person, the person who's been on the 12 apostles thing, council, is called the president of the Council of the 12 Apostles, and that's the guy that basically every single time has become the new apostle, the new prophet, prophet. And so, like, and all of these guys are in their 80s and 90s.
To him and Mormonism, and then we'll go back and forth. All right? So that's how we're going to do it. I want you to know that I see all of these 4 individuals as my friends. I love each of them, all of them. And so I hope that you'll do the same, that you'll show them respect. It's really easy to want blood, you know, especially if the crowd starts getting into it. So I would just appreciate it if you would show them all respect. And let's just try to make this an event where people actually give good information.
So Claire is on her 3rd channel, and she's here, and she says, "Why do you care about Mormons?" She's been trolling me for the past couple of days, trying to like make me hate Christians more. But it's a good question. I know I should ignore Claire, but it is a good question. Why do I care about Mormons? Well, partially because I really, I mean, when I was in Salt Lake City, I was really hit very strongly with this question, and the joke, like, why did God create Mormons? So that Christians, so the Christians know how Jews feel, and I really feel like there's a lot of truth in that joke. And Mormons are really nice people, and I think there's something to that. You know, when Jesus says, "By their fruits you shall know them," I really agree with that. That is a very, very Jewish concept, and I think by their fruits you can know that the Mormon Church, and I think in the culture war, they are huge allies, untapped allies. Why are we not tapping the resource that is the Mormon Church? So, and ever since I've started looking into it, there's been a lot of interesting things. There's just I'm definitely going to continue like being involved with the Mormon community in some manner. Probably not the manner they would prefer, but they're incredibly nice people.
Information we can learn, and then you can decide afterward. We can have a Donnybrook in here, all right? But while they're doing it, let them just do what they do. And I just really try to implore that. We didn't decide who's going to go first, so we're going to Rochambeau, best out of 3, 1, 2, 3, rock, paper, scissors between you two. You can have it. Do you want to go first, or do you want them to go first?
Either way, you're the moderator. Point.
Pathetic. Okay.
This is Mormons being way too nice.
Please silence your phones and devices. And I guess we're going to start with you guys.
Well, actually, before we start, can I say something really fast?
No, because I haven't started the clock. Don't break the damn rules before we start.
Well, actually, I would like to.
No, you cannot until
It's
not
in fairness to him.
Not until we start.
Okay.
It has to count for your time, brother.
Because I like you, bro.
I love you too. All right. All right. Okay. Let me get my
the principal.
Wait. Second.
You
Let me get my clock up here.
You can tell me if you
No. Okay, guys. Where's my clock? Clock. Stopwatch. You may say whatever you want unless you want me to give you a question now.
Well, I mean, I was actually going to lead out to the audience. There seems to be a lot of confusion as to how this debate came to be. To be honest with you, we had a very incendiary, I wouldn't say incendiary, but very aggressive podcast called The Cruel Hypocrisy of Modern Anti-Mormonism, in which I called out a Bill Reel that I now see in the front audience here. Okay. And
I have to say, I have been very, very disgusted with the Mormonism stuff. Like, you can make intelligent critiques of Mormonism, and I intend to, but like the anti-Mormon stuff, it's just ridiculous and a lot of horrible culture war stuff. And you can tell there's a lot of propaganda. You can really tell there is a lot of, like, the culture warriors have decided we're going after Mormons, and they're going after Mormons with all the techniques that I recognize. Yeah.
And I challenged him to debate any of these ideas that I had expressed inside of my podcast, at which point he challenged us back via email. And then you can take this out of my time, I don't care. And then I challenged him again to do anytime, anywhere, any place, any recorded format, at which point he dog-legged onto this. But our original challenge was to Bill Reel. So I actually bought a 6th microphone for you. And I think it would be only in fairness to your side, and assuming the audience wants it, that Bill Reel participate as the originator.
Okay, so this is why I actually like Radio Free Mormon. He's being mean. He's being mean while being really nice, and springing this on him. And I love it. Yeah.
Our challenger and the person that I challenged. So, Bill, we actually got you an extra microphone here. Will you come and take it?
I'd like to see the show.
Okay.
Let's have an applause for
That's fine.
I want to have some.
See, this is the type of stunt that I like. Okay, just having technical issues.
Applause for the grandstanding. This is the
That's great.
Hey,
Just
you don't get to talk yet.
I'm sorry.
Keep you wasting
Then
your
just
time.
let the record show
That your
he
grandstand.
was offered the opportunity and denied the opportunity.
Okay, I gotta
So now I backed up.
wait. I gotta make it clear. You guys cannot talk over each other. If you have the time running,
Yeah,
it's
sure.
yours. If you
Absolutely.
can't say a word, and you either, okay? So let's respect that. You guys ready?
Yes.
I'm ready.
All right. Please speak to how and why you feel the Book of Mormon is holy, inspired, writ from God. Include your thoughts and beliefs on origin, translation, errors, if any, and whether you feel there is an authentic material basis for the storyline. In the end, give us your best pitch for the book that Joseph Smith said was the most correct of any book on earth, the keystone of our religion, and a man would get nearer to God by abiding its precepts than any other book.
Oh, that's a long question.
It
How
is,
much
and the
time-
questions are long. So
Yeah.
How much time do we have left?
you've got 5.5 minutes. Okay.
I'll take a lead with this.
All right.
So for me, I believe that the Book of Mormon is inspired. It is the Word of God. It started for me when I was 12 years old. We were challenged by President Hinckley at the time to.
So you have to understand, Mormons are actually quite charismatic, or at least they were at the beginning. And so their whole thing is, and actually, I had a visit from Mormon missionaries, and he gave me a card with prayer, which he gave me a card with, here it is. And it's like, so what they want, what he said is, say this prayer, right? And then read the Book of Mormon, and then you'll know, right? And you'll get an answer. And this is their shtick. Like, the Holy Spirit will tell you if the Book of Mormon is true. And I have to say, I got the same answer a lot of people did, which is nope. Yeah, that's So when we talk about like which form of knowing you put first, like as far as whether or not like it's the Holy Spirit, so it's intuitive, you know that it's true, and that's how you go forward.
Read the entirety of the Book of Mormon by the end of the year. And I took that challenge and promptly forgot it and remembered on December 28th, and then started reading all the way through after First Nephi. Upon reading all the way through, I prayed about it, and it started for me with a spiritual witness from God that this was his word, and it grew from there. Later on my mission, I had the opportunity to read through the entire standard works of the gospel, and there was able to see the places where the Book of Mormon aligns with what I think the Bible teaches, and the things that are said in the Bible that sometimes are misinterpreted by other parties. And that helped me to recognize that Jesus Christ, as presented in the Book of Mormon, is the same Jesus Christ as presented in the Bible.
Okay, so this is the funny part. So yeah, and that's part of what made it really clear that it's like, so the story is that there's two parts to well, there's three parts to the Book of Mormon, to like Mormon scriptures. There are these books that supposedly a Jew who lived in Jerusalem and like 600 BCE, God told him to come to the United States. Okay. 600 BCE, came to the United States. And so like the book of Nephi, and like I guess their thing is that Nephi is actually an Egyptian name, not a Hebrew name, because it's not Hebrew. There are these books that are supposedly written by this guy hundreds of years before Jesus, and they refer to Jesus, right? And then there's the Book of Mormon, which is like written when Jesus appeared in North America and revealed himself, and that's why it's another testament of Jesus. So they have they have an Old Testament that's before Jesus but talks all about Jesus, and like it's very, very Christian. And then they have the Book of Mormon, which is the testament, like the New Testament, of what the apostles of Jesus learned. And then there's and then they have like doctrines and covenants, and these are the things that Joseph Smith taught.
I believe that the Book of Mormon is a testament of Jesus Christ. It teaches us who he is. It will lead us to a personal relationship with him. And you can double check this with everything that is said in the Bible. I believe that's part of why it's there. It's a secondary witness. This is something where God has given us witness in our heart and our minds, and we need to use both, otherwise we're selling ourselves short. And so that's the gist of why I believe the Book of Mormon is the Word of God.
If I can go after, I believe the Book of Mormon is an authentic ancient record, but ultimately you don't have to believe that. But what we do need to believe is that we each have individual worth, and that the ancients, whether they're in South America, Mesoamerica, Egypt, Europe, that they had actual worth, and that they had souls and spirits, and that there's a part of every human being that has actual worth that matters more than just what a self-help book can say, or what an Instagram account can say, or what a podcast can say. When you take away the divine worth of human beings, you relegate them to nothingness. You're about as good as a dog. You're about as good as...
So this is why he's like, this is all Peterson, right? It's like religion, like he's like, I don't care propositionally if it's true or not. I care about Jungian theology, which is more true than a thing.
Is that trash can?
More true than anything propositional. So he's into the symbology.
You need to have actual worth that's outside of this world. And the Book of Mormon is another book that teaches you who you are and why you matter. When you take those principles away, you have an incredibly sad, secular, postmodern society, one that we have now, one where the odds are stacked against us, one where the minority hold almost all of the wealth, one where your children probably won't.
I've never heard Midnight Mormons directly address Jordan Peterson, but like this is the Jordan Peterson line. This is the religion that's not a religion line. I don't care if it's true. I care about the symbolism and meaning and life and having a worth in human beings and things like that.
Won't be able to pay for college, and most marriages are failing because we've decided that secular ethics are more important than eternal godly ethics. And you can ignore the Book of Mormon, you can ignore the warnings, you can ignore all of the things that it tells us to pay. That was God. It tells us to pay attention to, or, I'm sorry, blasphemous, right? Or you can pay attention to those warnings and you can actually look at what the Book of Mormon is telling us to look for in our own society. And maybe then we can save our incredibly falling Western society and our Abrahamic and Judeo-Christian heritage. But that's what it comes down to. Altars don't really matter. Nahum doesn't really matter. What matters is, are we going to save what our ancestors built and what we enjoy, or are we going to be cowards and let it all fall and have nothing to look forward to and have nothing to be proud of?
Again, I think this is Jonathan Pajot, Vervaeke. This is Jordan Peterson. I don't care about the propositional truth. And I mean, obviously, I don't think the LDS can actually say that. But ultimately, I think for a lot of Mormons, that's actually what's keeping Mormonism together for them. Because honestly, like you look at the Mormons and like it's a good life. It's good people being kind and nice, and like all their testimonies and like their services. It's all about like encouraging people to be good and like have healthy families. And they have this thing, family home evening, where you're supposed to stay at home and play board games and with your family and everybody. Like it's beautiful. And it's like if you're going to, if you want a religion that's not a religion, basically you could just adopt Mormonism with the way he's describing it.
Cool.
About 2 minutes.
Oh, I wasn't expecting anything. Okay.
That's why we kept
The question is, why do I believe in the Book of Mormon? It's simple, because I've had deep and profound spiritual experiences with that book that are undeniably spiritual. And in a simple way, whenever I've applied its precepts
This is a charismatic witness he's giving,
to my life has gotten better. And
a pragmatic witness.
I held my daughter.
I held my daughter. This is Jordan Peterson. This is the last 5 minutes of Jordan Peterson's Maps of Meaning thing. I held my daughter. That's it.
Excuse me. I held my daughter when she stopped breathing. She had an 85% chance of death. And this is not a hospital money. It's a testimony that when you go to a place as a father, so deep, where you hold your child, as she may very well have gasped her last breath, a lot of the cultural arguments of God, Jesus Christ, Joseph Smith, go away. And you are left with just you and God and your understanding. And I believe that the most important thing in the Book of Mormon. Teaches us is to recognize the Holy Ghost and have the courage to act upon its promptings. And every time I've cultivated the ability to do that, my life has drastically improved. And I've had coping mechanisms to get through the worst aspects of life. And that inherently is divine. So my testimony is limited, probably not as profound as these guys, but it's gotten me through something that modern leftist secularism could never even attempt to try.
And that's time. Thank you,
Rock on.
gentlemen. Radio Free Mormon, under the topic of the Book of Mormon, in your estimation, does it matter if the origin and or translation story of the Book of Mormon is a historical material fact? Since it serves, as we've just seen in the lives of these three young men, to inspire people to live lives that they find are in more harmony with the teachings of Jesus Christ. Do you believe that trusting in the origin story of the book does harm to those who accept the message? And if so, how and why? And if not, then why criticize the book at all? And also, do you believe that the LDS Church has been disingenuous to its members about the Book of Mormon and mainly the translation events?
Let me start off by saying that I prayed my way through the Book of Mormon when I was
I'm sorry,
19
people.
years
I'm gonna.
old.
I have to do something, and I want to give this my thing. So talk amongst yourselves. I am going to give myself 30 seconds and then be back. Sorry about this. Okay, sorry about that, but things are happening. Okay.
The Holy Ghost bore record to me in an unmistakable way that every single word in that book was the word of God.
Ready to start eating healthier?
Okay.
Meet Kachava.
And now we have a
Kachava is the
interruption.
world's
And yet here I am today. And that's because after 40 years of studying, of praying, of researching, of frankly trying my best, I think I got the gold medal in mental gymnastics for many, many years.
See, and this is the thing. Like, I think Mormonism has to unravel because it's just propositionally indefensible. So, yeah.
Until finally it became exhausting to me. But I will answer your question. First off, with the Book of Mormon, I view it as scripture, but I don't view it as scripture to everybody. I still find things in it that are valuable. And I appreciate the fact that other people find things in it that are valuable too. I would not try and take that away from them. However, demonstrably, the Book of Mormon is not historical. It is very clearly a product of early 19th century America from the very beginning to the very end of it. And so the way that Joseph Smith portrays the coming forth of the Book of Mormon ends up being inextricably linked with its historicity. If he had said that he had found some plates somewhere like the Kinderhook plates. And he translates them, and then it's the Book of Mormon. Then it could just be scripture without being historical, I think. Unfortunately, Joseph Smith has a story about an angel coming to him in 1823, and then every year thereafter on the autumnal equinox, named Moroni in almost every account. And this angel says he is the last of these Nephite prophets. And this is one of the problems, because the historicity of the Book of Mormon ends up being really, for most members, completely tied with whether it is true or whether it is inspired or whether it is scripture. Now, getting to the last part about, oh yes, the church has been so disingenuous with everybody about the coming forth of the Book of Mormon. And at the time that Joseph Smith translated it, everybody around him knew exactly what was going on. They knew that he was taking his seer stone, which he had used in multiple treasure digs throughout the decade of the 1820s. It was very popular.
And so, see, they're talking right past each other. He's talking propositionally, and like the other side doesn't care about propositional knowledge at all, right? You had both the guys who were giving this Petersonian religion that's not a religion. This is useful. This is our life. This, you want to believe in things, and then you have the guy who's like talking about his daughter and like hope and like holding, emotional, and that they're just talking straight past each other, because this guy is like, well, Joseph Smith lied. Who cares? Right? Like, you're not even talking about the same thing.
I'm not sure he ever found anything, but he always had a good story as to why it was that he didn't find the treasure.
And he thinks that that's a bad thing, right? So did you hear, like, the other guys, they're like, Joseph Smith told a good story. And he's like, Joseph Smith told a good story. And both of them are like talking, taking the same thing and well, I mean, so by the way, if you want to come on, Roman, you can. How can it unravel and the core of love stay intact? I have my views, but that would require them all to like suddenly decide that they're Noachides, and that the whole reason Joseph Smith existed was to be part of Moshiach ben Yosef and stuff like that. Sorry, I'm doing it. Sorry, I'm doing other stuff. I'm actually helping organize possibly LobsterCon. So yeah. They all think they're Noachides. Yeah. Mormons don't even drink coffee. Exactly. Oh, and they don't use crosses. I didn't know this. They don't, like, their churches have no crosses. And their communion is with water, like the Ebionites. I'm telling you, like, I could weave a great Mormon Noahide story. I'm not going to say that it's like that. I've had some sort of revelation. But if you want a story that you can believe in, like, okay, so there's already people who are like, Joseph Smith was Mashiach ben Yosef, right? And okay, so let's let's weave our little story, okay? Let's say that Joseph Smith was actually a real prophet like Jesus, okay? And he was like Mashiach ben Yosef, like Jesus, okay? And his whole reason for existence is that he would bring testimony that would be corrupted by his followers. And then, okay. Okay, so maybe Roman will come. I am a little distracted because I'm doing okay, so yeah, so hopefully that's been dealt with, and I won't be as distracted, and maybe Roman will come on, but like, okay, so this is the story I would tell if I was constructing a story that would allow like the Mormons to, if I was constructing let me see if I can make this. Okay, there we are. Hey. So if I were constructing a story for the Mormons, this is what I would do. I would say that Joseph Smith, like Jesus, is Mashiach ben Yosef, meaning he was supposed to come, preach a message that would then get corrupted and spread throughout the world, okay? Mm-hmm. And then it would unravel like I think is actually true, and to reveal that really Judaism was true all the time, and like that they should be Noahites, right? So that like allows them also to like clear away all the stuff with Joseph Smith, because everything can be written away as like, no, these are later things people said, these were things people, because there's all these denominations within like Mormonism that have all these stories, and you don't have to believe any of it, because really the whole reason for it was so that it would in fact like reveal this thing, right?
So you can do that with Christianity because there's 2,000 years. Like Joseph Smith was like 100 years ago or something, right? Like
more like 200. Yeah, but there is a lot of like vagueness there. Like there are all these like I don't know how much you know about their history, but so the current LDS, which is like 15 million people, so they had Brigham Young, and Brigham Young is like their Paul, because there are people who are like, oh, you know what, the whole polygamy thing, Brigham Young was polygamous, not Joseph Smith. And Brigham Young and like the racist stuff, so there were actually people that that Joseph Smith ordained to the priesthood who were black, and Brigham Young was the one that like, no, they can't really be priests.
So
and
is that
black
true?
What is what true? I lost you, but it yes, Joseph Smith himself did ordain black people. He's hopefully he'll be back, but let's go back to this thing.
Treasure, right? And he kept people wanting to find that treasure. I think of it as the 1820s version of the lotto, right? You always hear about people winning it, but
Yeah.
Lost
so
you.
you're right. Right. So so you were saying that Joseph Smith, I don't know what the word is exactly, but he
Ordained, yeah.
he ordained black people to the priesthood. Is this
Yeah.
true, or is this just what
Yeah.
they say?
No. It's there were black people that he ordained to the priesthood, and then Brigham Young came along and was like, no.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. And Brigham Young was the one who like did all the whole, oh, black people aren't allowed in the temple, black people are the children of Cain thing. So like you could do the whole like, you know, just like Paul came and perverted Jesus, Brigham Young came and perverted Joseph Smith, and all the bad stuff. Like you could throw all the bad stuff onto Brigham Young. I think.
So you're gonna scapegoat. But see, this is always does this sort of weird meta thing in Christianity, because like then he's the scapegoat, right?
Yeah.
Then he's the real Jesus, right?
Look, if you're pragmatically trying to, I'm not saying I believe any of this stuff, because frankly, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I actually, like, looking into it and from everything I've seen, I think Joseph Smith was visited by a demon. But that's because I believe, like, I actually believe in the supernatural. So nobody's going to believe me, right? But I think Joseph Smith was visited by a demon, and like the LDS was created in order to help Christians eventually come to the realization that like the Book of Mormon, they have to discard it. And just like the Mormons have to discard the Book of Mormon, I think Paul was visited by a demon, and I think that we have to discard the writings of Paul.
So this is interesting. So the only thing that points to it actually being demonic, other than him just being a fraud, which he was, is that the people who like left Mormonism never said that, oh, these golden plates aren't real. They were like, no, these golden plates are real.
Yeah, they did.
But with Paul, so you think the Christophany that showed up to Paul on the road to Damascus, this was actually a demonic entity that showed up to.
I mean, Paul himself says that he was beset by a demon.
He does say that. He says he's got the thorn in the flesh, right? He's got
right, and he says that he himself says he was beset by a demon.
Yeah, but this is because I really think that's beautiful. Like the whole thing where he's like, he's got this affliction, and then like I feel the same way about Psalm 119. Like he's got this affliction, but he has to, at the end of the day, he has to thank God for the affliction. And I always felt that way about the thorn in the flesh. I always thought, yeah, you have to bear with suffering, and sometimes God gives you the suffering for hopefully a good reason, right?
If you want to somehow redeem Paul, what you can say is Paul was an okay person, because I don't believe that God, like, I don't believe he was innocently suffering. It's to me, it's inexcusable to talk about Moses the way Paul does. Like somebody who speaks about Moses the way he does, like opens himself up to demonic possession. As far as I'm concerned.
Well, I can sort of see the parallel even, right? Like you have Joseph Smith is like this fraud who says he can find gold and he probably can't. And then like Paul is like this guy who's like going around killing people for like, maybe they believe some heresy or whatever, but they probably don't believe it bad enough to be
Well,
killed,
okay,
right?
so the way Chaim Maccabee explains it in the book The Myth Maker is that Paul was a tool of the Sadducee high priest, and the Sadducees, as far as we Pharisaic Jews are concerned, are in fact heretics. So he may have, like, I'm perfectly fine with saying that he was a pawn of this Sadducee high priest and was beset by demons. If that's how you want to explain Paul, okay.
No. Well, okay, like an innocent person being beset by demons, like almost doesn't make sense to me. But like, oh, a guy who murders people. Oh yeah, okay, sure. I
Yeah.
get that, right? But like, so what's so bad about the Sadducees that you think they're heretics?
They denied the oral law. They denied the book of the books of the prophets and the
Sure.
and the writings. I mean, so I mean, the fight between the Sadducees and the Pharisees, like it was real. It actually existed.
Yeah, but like,
and they were tools of the Romans.
okay, that's serious. How are they tools of the Romans?
They ran so the Romans, when Herod took over rule of Palestine, he first thing he did was send his army in and murder half the Sanhedrin. And my guess is it was the Pharisees more than the Sadducees.
You think the Sadducees ratted them out? So they
Not
could
ratted
survive.
them out. They were compliant to Herod. Then Herod killed his brother-in-law, who was the high priest, Mariamne's brother, and installed his own Sadducee high priest as his puppet.
Ah, okay. So
Yeah.
you think it goes all the way up to Herod, and this is even the Bible, right? Like Herod is not a good guy, right?
Herod is a horrible guy.
Yeah.
Like I mean, there's a reason why people believed that he would do the massacre of the innocents. He was a horrible person.
Okay.
Yeah. So here we've constructed a perfect religion that's not a religion. Okay, let's listen to the rest of this. If you want to if you want to pause it,
But
just
maybe
like
you don't
wave
actually
your
know
hand or
anybody.
something.
So you want to go out there and you want to try and find it. Well, the church has known this forever, that this is how he dictated the Book of Mormon. And yet for the last century, until the essays, until the word got out, right? Until the word got out, they have portrayed it as Joseph Smith looking at the plates themselves and translating the actual characters that were actually written on the plates. And then when the word got out to too many people, what's my time, Sean?
You're doing good.
When the word got out to too many people, it achieved critical mass that people were finding out that actually Joseph Smith was taking his seer stone that he used in treasure digs, putting it in his hat, putting his face over the hat. By the way, the exact same thing he did when he was trying.
But you see, he's not addressing any of the stuff that the actual believing Mormons said. He's just giving propositional reasons why, from a modernist point of view, you shouldn't believe what Joseph Smith said, as if that was the argument they actually made at all.
Trying to locate treasure, exactly the same modus operandi. And then he's dictating the text of the Book of Mormon out of his hat. The church has known that since the very beginning. And yet, it was only when it achieved critical mass and too many people knew about it that 2015 comes along, and they take the seer stone out of the church historian's vault, where the church had it, right? They knew it was there. They bring it out for a photo op. I think it was the October Ensign magazine. And then they put it back in the safe. So they knew. And then when they find out, the members find out that the church hasn't been straight with them, then what the...
So this is part of the propositional crisis that the Mormon church is having. I mean, and I don't know that they know how to deal with it. I didn't realize 2015 was like a big date, but apparently what's happening is because of the internet, a lot of people are having a propositional crisis, a modernist crisis. And so there's this guy, John Dehlin, who I mean, okay, if you want to be nice, you can say that he is an unwitting tool of Soros types who are funding him without him knowing. That's the best thing you can say.
So he's like a new atheist. I haven't really seen his stuff, but like, is that what he is?
He's a psychologist.
Okay.
And he has this podcast called Mormon Voices. And what he does is basically he brings atheist testimonials on
former Mormon testimonials.
Exactly, but not just former Mormon ones. He actually he brought this Orthodox Jew. Mm-hmm. Like and she, the funny thing about her is she grew up modern Orthodox. She's a fiction writer, and she's written these pseudo biographies where like she tells a story that's made her very popular, but she was never like in a very strictly Orthodox thing herself. But so she came on to his Mormon Stories channel, and he has her on to kind of weave this story about how like my experience escaping from Orthodox Judaism is like your experience escaping from Mormonism thing. And so he brings people on to have like these testimonials to help like move them into this weird mix of postmodernist. And it's the perfect, like, okay, let's say you're Hillary Clinton or the DNC or George Soros or Move On or any of these people who want to move the LDS in a certain way so that it's politically advantageous to them. You give a large amount of money to a public relations firm. Like, so I was a public relations major.
You think these people are actually trying to destroy Mormon communities? That's what you're saying.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh Jesus, that's bad.
So I was a public relations major, okay, and working in public relations. If I were hired by a political campaign to do what basically Greg Horowitz did. In order to get Biden elected, right? Yeah. And I was like, you know what, Mormons, there's they have all this political power, they have all this influence, they're getting involved in, and they got involved in Proposition 8 in California, and that pissed a lot of people off when Proposition 8 passed. Proposition 8 was defending traditional marriage in California, and it passed. And like a lot of people, I think, were like, oh, we need to go destroy the Mormon church.
God, I think Mormons are like wrong, but like, I would never want to destroy their communities. They're so beautiful and they're so nice. And the whole reason they have any power at all is because they have a community and almost no one else does. And it's like,
yeah. Oh no, that's definitely
incredibly evil.
So Spatch, I mean, Shane, if you want to come on, you're more than welcome. I don't know if you want to come on. I'm gonna send Shane an invite because Shane actually comes from a Mormon family.
Oh, cool.
And lives in Utah.
Or
he's moved into, I believe he's a Baptist now. I don't want to talk too much about Shane on the thing if he doesn't want me to talk about it. So if Shane wants to come on, but I'm not gonna like, but yeah, he actually lives in Utah, and Don't dox me, dude. Yeah, I'm sorry, Shane. I didn't mean to dox you. Okay. John Dehlin was a faithful Mormon critic of the church until he got excommunicated. I don't know how much I believe him. It's possible. And basically, he's the perfect person. Like, okay, let's assume you're like a Hillary Clinton type and you hire a public relations firm to like try to manipulate the Mormon community. What I would do I would find a John Dehlin without him knowing. I would finance him and advertise for him and make him more popular, because he will move like the Mormons, especially like a lot of his stories are gay ex-Mormons. Like he has a gay ex-Mormon, like a married ex-Mormon gay man as like a co-host, and his shows are like 5 hours long. It's the perfect thing for like drawing in people who aren't so happy with their Mormon life and helping make woke ideology their new community. And these people are like really possessed. You saw the comment that person made on my other video about John Dehlin. It was like, don't subscribe, just downvote. So like these people are like in groups coming to downvote my video about John Dehlin to save him. It's like total ideological possession. Total ideological possession. And I could believe that John Dehlin was a faithful Mormon, starts asking questions, he gets excommunicated, and then like these people from the outside think, oh, this guy's perfect, and they start propping him up and pumping him up and probably influencing him. It's possible he's just a tool. But at best he's a tool, I think. So the Mormon church takes people with constructive criticism of the church, excommunicates them, and turns them into enemies. Yeah, I would probably say something unwise. Oh, if you came on, I mean, it's up to you if you want to come on. Frankly, I don't think. So without doxing Shane, I'm sure there's more than enough Shanes in Utah, but his family, like he has Mormon family, so like, yeah. And look, there is this kind of fear of excommunication and stuff in the Mormon. It's a weird community because it's a very kind community. It's not cultish at all. Like you would think it. Like a lot of these people, I think John Dehlin paints the Mormon church as being very cultish, and it's not. I know what cults are like. It's not cultish, but it is a faith community that is used to the old way of dealing with things, which I've seen also. I mean, I see so many parallels with the Hasidic community. Like there are Hasidic communities like Chabad, which are very open, and they so they don't use any of the objectionable older ways that religions kept their community together. So Shane says it is cultish. I don't think so. I think they use a lot of traditional methods like shunning, which is a traditional. That's not cult. Shunning and shaming people is not cult behavior necessarily. It really isn't. It's just social behavior. It's how society deals with antisocial behavior. And yeah, we have a degree of openness now that most societies did not have before, which I think is healthier. But you still have to shame people it's the question is not whether you shame people. The question is, what do you shame people for? Right? So shaming people for being an alcoholic, for example, well, a former alcohol, like shaming people for being an actual like drunk, right? And not like a recovering alcoholic, but being a drunk, that type of shame is useful and when done correctly within limits, you don't want people to be completely shameless, right? You want people to have shame for the bad things you don't want them to do. You want to have a way of repentance, but you don't want people to be absolutely shameless. And this is the postmodernist, and that's what John Dehlin, he's like, they shame people as if like if you there shouldn't be any shame. Like if you murder someone, you should be shamed. if you're going around raping people, or if you rape someone just once, you should be shamed, and people should know that like if you do that, you will be publicly shamed. So this is the thing. Like there's the John Dehlin types whose whole thing is they're pushing postmodernist woke stupidity, I would say. Like the idea that we should never shame anybody. And then there's the LDS itself, which is stodgy and old and using old tactics. And then there's people like this, these what I would call Mormon lobsters, like Midnight Mormon and Kwaku, or I hope I'm saying his name right. And they're making a whole different like Pajot argument, right? Which is outside the church, but supportive of the church. Are they wearing body armor? Yeah, they are. And this is part of the thing. It's like the Midnight Mormon. I really respect these guys, and I think it's bad that it's weird to me that they're so small. If the church was smarter, I think they would be more. So what happened was the church actually did, to some extent, support these guys like Kwaku. And when the John Dehlin types had the exact manipulative ways of doing things that you should expect, that I do expect from the culture warriors on the postmodernist side, the church caved and like stopped supporting Kwaku, which I think is the biggest mistake they could have made. I'm the Midnight Mormon that moms at midnight. What? That morms at midnight? I don't know what you're saying, Shane.
I think it's the Mormon joke. Do you hear this joke? The meme. There's a Morbius movie and the movie's bad. People say it's Mormon time. I assume it's Mormon time as opposed to it's Mormon time.
There must be an inside Mormon joke here that I don't get. By the way, a bunch of people are watching. If any of them are interested in coming on with your cameras on, you can join my Discord server, which I will get an invite to.
So by body armor, does he mean the temple garments?
No. They're actually wearing actual body armor. Body armor. If you
they're
look,
afraid of getting shot.
No, so this is part of their thing. It's like they're so let me put this in the so this is part of their thing. Like they're like there to take like the flack, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so if anybody who's watching who wants to come on, if you join my Discord server and you send me a DM on Discord, I will send you a link and you can come on. Or if you somehow know me and you can Well, I mean, actually, my cell phone number's on the internet. You can just find it by Googling me. If you want to text my cell phone number, and I will send you a link. We can do it that way as well. But if anybody wants to come on, because I'm really fascinated. I'm planning on having some Mormons on from the Mormon Lobster group and stuff, and I've invited some Mormons to come on because I really think this is like really interesting and important stuff. But yeah, I will gladly have Mormons on because I have no clue. Like I found out that Mormons have bishops like a week ago. I didn't even know they had bishops. So they call their pastors bishops. So the person who's like the pastor of a local church is called a bishop. But they're also lay, like, so the pastor of the local church isn't an actual, like, he has a different job doing, he has a normal job, and he's a bishop, like part-time pastor. And then they actually have a very well set up hierarchy. That's why, I mean, I think they get such good fruits because they have a really nice hierarchy. And the problem is that like their theology is propositionally garbage. But from all the other aspects, it's fine. It has really good results, and it's very healthy. So it's like, what do you do when your theology is based on propositional garbage, but like your whole church structure is actually rather healthy?
Could you do that? Is that so? Like, so it's a problem apparently to be like easily falsifiable, like a lot of Mormonism. But like, could you construct like a good religion out of like psychology and like
Well,
this meaningless
that's
stuff?
precisely what Vervaeke is trying to do.
Yeah.
That's what the religion that's not a religion is trying to do, and that's what Sam Harris in some aspects is trying to do with his meditation apps, and that's what Brett Weinstein wants to do, and the Game B people, a lot of them want to do, but it doesn't work
Because there's no hierarchy?
No, it's not just a hierarchy. I think you need propositional. You need to believe in the truth, and this was part of my discussion with Chezi, right? He's like, Judaism's valuable enough that I don't care if there was a Moses or not, and I can understand that, but I think if you don't care about propositional truth at any level, it does end up really like whatchamacallit, really undermining the religion itself. And you have to have enough of a commitment to the truth that if it is propositional garbage, you're willing to say. And for me, like, so this is what I call the quiet confidence. I have the quiet confidence that God is true, that if I were to learn that Moses never existed, right, I would then, be like, okay, I need to find the religion that is propositionally true in addition to all the metaphoric truths and stuff, because you can't just discard the necessity, I don't think, of propositional truth like that. It just doesn't work.
It seems like Sam Harris cares a lot about the truth. He wrote a whole book about like how it's bad to lie. I don't know.
Sam Harris, I mean, I don't want to diss him too much. He's just not that smart.
Smart enough to be a cult leader. I don't think he has much of the cult leader heart in him.
No, I mean, look, his parents were very influential people, and he grew up in a lot of privilege, and he's I forget who calls them midwits.
Okay.
Somebody came up with said this term of midwit. I forget who it was. Somebody in our corner, I think. And so he's smart enough to get his PhD in neuroscience, right? He's not a dumb person, but he's not like on the level of Jordan Peterson. Like, if he didn't have the parents that he had and all the privilege that he had, he would never get a PhD. He would probably be like, I don't know, the manager. Sorry, Christian. He would probably be the manager of a McDonald's, right? And that doesn't mean that like every manager of McDonald's is a midwit. There are people who come from very different circumstances who end up being the manager of a McDonald's because they're smart, but he's not smart enough to stand out. Michael Malice popularized midwits. I don't remember who coined it. Cernovich, maybe. Yeah, so somebody told me about midwit. And so, yeah, he's not like a brilliant person. He's not a brilliant thinker. He's just somebody who's an okay thinker who synthesizes things and speaks well and had a lot of education. And that's why he loses his mind with Trump, because his distributed cognition can't handle, and he's relying on a lot of distributed cognition, right?
Right.
So, yeah. Okay, let's keep on going because this is almost 3 hours long, and you know what? I'm gonna do it in 1.5 speed because otherwise we're gonna be here forever.
The leaders do is they blame the artists. You all have heard that, right? Oh, that's those artists' fault. We got some rogue artists out there who are painting pictures that have nothing to do with how the Book of Mormon was translated and somehow sneaking them into the pages of the Ensign, into the Sunday school lessons, everywhere. They're on the meeting house walls, or at least they used to before they started focusing on Jesus. You know,
so there's a lot of this going on right now with the propositional stuff. The Mormon church is like, oh, no. Joseph Smith never said that. And they're rolling a lot of stuff away. And like, I met, so this book, where is it? So this book is another version of the Book of Mormon that somebody else made that like tries to undo all the Brigham Young bullshit. So
whoa. The thing you're talking about already happened.
There are tons of denominations within the LDS. And like some of them, so this is an attempt to restore the real Book of Mormon as opposed to the one that the Church of Brigham Young has been falsely sending. Yeah, I got it right here. This is really interesting stuff. Like, honestly, you could easily get a PhD in anthropology just by documenting what's going on in the Mormon church right now. And like, I absolutely feel like it was absolutely divine inspiration which led me to like look into this stuff.
But that's like crazy. You could like believe that this is divinely inspired and then go and change it. Like to do one or the other, I believe. To do both is why? I don't understand. I don't get it.
What do you mean? Like, do you mean me?
If you don't believe it and you want to invent some lie, right? Okay, I understand. I get it. Cool. You're evil. It's cool. If you do believe it and you wouldn't want to change it, right? Like,
no. So the person who made this version of the Book of Mormon believes it.
He believes some fraction of it, and he thinks he can decipher what part is true from what part is false. Which means
that's right? Basically what I do with Jesus.
I know everybody does it. I know everybody has to engage their mind with the thing, but But to actually change the book, to actually say like,
Well, no. Hold on. You have to understand that, like, the Book of Mormon was what there. There's a lot of so Joseph Smith did himself never could have written a book.
why
He
not?
dictated it to
Right.
people.
Yeah,
And
he
then
was pretty good at
after
that.
he died, like, there was a lot of controversy about what actually happened.
Oh no. Okay.
So
right.
there's so again, I mean, you have this thing where people have
Oh god. This is like
So-
the satanic verses thing. Anyone could have written anything they wanted in, so now you can take it out. Oh no.
so Vox Day came up with midwit, and I don't like Vox Day, so we do this all the time. There's a set of fact data points, right? And you create you do a regression, you create a narrative that fits the data points,
Right.
right?
Right.
And that's basically what all of us do. Like when we look at history, that's what I'm doing. I'm taking the data points that I have, and I'm making a regression that makes sense with the data points that I have. And it's not the only regression you could possibly do. And if there were more data points, I would change my model. And so that's basically what I say about Father Stephen DeYoung, right? Most Christians do not have a defensible, like, with everything we know about Judaism and stuff, they don't have a defensible Christianity.
I don't
Father
think most
Stephen
people have a coherent Christianity. Like if you go think about it for like 5 minutes, you're like, okay, well, how many people affirm all the stuff Thomas Aquinas affirmed about the Trinity? And like almost no one. People who have PhDs in Catholicism, maybe. Right?
Most forms of Christianity are completely indefensible, I would say. Father Stephen gives you one that I think you can defend. I still disagree with it, but it's defensible. And I think N.T. Wright is similarly trying to, like, give you a Christianity you can defend. I think Bishop Barron tries to give you a Christianity you can defend. And Paul Vanderklay is giving you a Christianity you can defend intellectually. Like, this is what all these people who are serious are engaging in. But again, you have to take all the points of evidence, and you have to make a regression that is somehow defensible.
Sure.
And the problem is that a lot of the oldest things are not defensible. And when people see a regression that's markedly different from anything that's ancient, they say it can't be true. And I mean, I kind of sort of agree with that. For me, look, so I've told you about the Omphalos hypothesis, right?
I don't remember this.
Okay, so Omphalos literally means belly button, and the question is, did Adam have a belly button or not?
Oh, so no.
Well,
I win.
the answer of the Omphalos hypothesis is that yes, he did. And
because of last Wednesdayism. Yeah, I've heard this. Okay.
Yeah, last Thursdayism is actually what people call it, right? When they're being derisive. But Orthodox Judaism believes in Omphalos. Okay. And for me, that would be indefensible if it wasn't precisely what the Talmud said 2,000 years ago, way before we had any of this. Well, at least 1,500 years ago. Because the Talmud, based on verses in the Bible, says that creation was betzivionam, and goes into long depth about how like it says God created trees that bear fruit, that when the trees were created, they had fruit on them.
So okay, I can like create a pencil version of this, but it's very different. I don't know if you want to hear this. This would be a digression.
But
So okay, my conception of how this works is very Taoist influenced, and it's that. But basically, what it bears down to is that I think Genesis, the early parts, in fact, I think some of the later parts, but the early parts are a description not of the arising of matter, but of the arising of mind. So when my consciousness comes into being, which happens instantaneously every few milliseconds, then the world comes into being and it's fully formed, right? That makes sense to me. But to say that, you know, the fruit tree had a history, even though it came into being without the history, is like, if you talk about it in terms of material reality, it doesn't make sense. But if you talk about it in terms of mind, it makes sense to me.
So that is one of the things a lot of people, especially modern Orthodox people, that's the type of thing they say.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so, because were you listening when we had our discussion on the Book of Job?
I was here for part of it. I did not hear all of it.
Okay, so where I talk about the veil and materiality being a lie. So in Jewish mysticism, where we believe that actually there is a veil of deceit that was necessary, there's a lie that is necessary for this world to exist, and that the truth will shine through, that God is hiding. No, it says clearly, God says,
No.
I will hide my face.
It sounds like Unsong, which I don't know if you've ever read, but it's
I
interesting.
have not, no.
Unsong is like a Kabbalah-themed alternate history written by Scout Alexander, who's a pretty good blogger.
Yeah.
And in it, like, there's an angel who like rewrote the world to like run off of science and physics and stuff. But before that, it ran off of like Kabbalah and letters and stuff. And so like, yeah, that's what it sounds like. It sounds like, oh, this whole science thing is just the world runs on math thing is just some angel supercomputer. It's their matrix to hide you from the Kabbalah or from the
right. So the
world.
matrix idea. I mean, it's the same idea. Yeah. I mean, this is very Neoplatonic. Okay.
This is these are the real Gadianton robbers, is the artists, okay? And then they blame the artists, it's their fault, and then we are in the clear in some way. No, they have been totally disingenuous about the way the Book of Mormon was translated. They got caught. They put it in the essays, which are almost impossible to find, even if you know that they're there on the church website. I can't tell you how many people have come up to me and said, you talk about these essays, where are they? I try and find them on the church website. And I have to give them a map because they're 3 clicks deep. They were written not to be read, is what the church essays were written for. They were written not to be read. They were written to be there in case the church got in a tight spot and they can use it as plausible deniability. Well, it's there in the essays on the church website. So I love the Book of Mormon. I love these guys. I feel a little bit undressed tonight because I didn't bring my bulletproof vest. Our audience didn't friend you.
No talking.
But those are my thoughts.
I totally blew this. I effed it up from the beginning.
What
You
happened?
were supposed to respond with 8 minutes. They were supposed to then have 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So now you can respond to what he just said. He'll respond to what you say. I'll give you 3 minutes, and then you 3. Go.
Okay.
So 8 minutes now? Okay, I think we can all start off by agreeing that artists are the main villains in history. We've all seen that. But Carden, go ahead.
Actually, it is interesting. Some of the first commissioned artists of the Book of Mormon actually weren't even members of the church. The church actually went outside of the box when hiring them. So if you study the oranges of some of those kind of silly Nephi armband pictures that we all got used to growing up, there's actually a very interesting history there. I got to tell you, RFM, if you're trying to convince me the boomers are the worst generation that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints ever saw, and that the church is true because they didn't break it yet, I'm in full agreement. I think that a lot of these arguments against the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints specifically are oftentimes generational and cultural arguments that apply also to America at large. I think in our post-war wealth, a lot of America went on autopilot, thinking that we're all in this ship that's in a rising tide. All of us are getting rich. And there was entire generations of people that never had to sacrifice on behalf of their faith. And so they got very lazy, and suburbanism took over a lot of what modern Christianity is. And a lot of these arguments will actually be valid in the context of their cultural criticisms.
And something that I want to say.
So this is part of the whole thing. The guy on the right is saying things that the people on the left don't care about. The Radio Free Mormon guy is mentioning, like, he has criticisms of the church. Whoop-de-doo. Human beings are fallen. Oh yeah, like, and so they're just talking past each other.
Though, is I think that the narrative that the church maliciously hid this is utterly false. You have to construct it very meticulously to make it look that way. I can't think of a single time that there is a document saying, hey, guys, don't tell anyone about the seer stone. We're going to keep this under wraps now. That didn't happen. I grew up knowing about this. I'm from Canada. Maybe it's different there. But I don't know. Like, I find it interesting because we all have different experience. I think it's easy for us to think that someone is saying, oh, no, you know what? You didn't grow up hearing about this. When I did, like, this was in Ensigns from the 70s. This was mentioned by people. It wasn't the main it wasn't the main thing brought up in the narrative, because the fact of the matter is the Book of Mormon is another testament of Jesus Christ. They weren't focused on the translation. I think that, I know Cardin talks about boomers a lot and derogatorily that, but I think they had a difficult job correlating a curriculum for an entire church. And I think they did their best with it, and it can be difficult to do that. But I think even RFM, we've had difficulty figuring out even how we're going to have this debate. I think, like, when we look at the records of what we're dealing with and how it went down between us, we couldn't even get our own story straight for how we all got here. So to have it be set up that the church knowingly, maliciously hid history from people, I think is a very tall order that gets overplayed quite a bit with very little evidence.
And if I can tag on here for the last bit, I converted to the church in 2014. And by the way, how much time do I have?
I've got 3.
Oh boy, all right. In 2014, I knew about seer stones. I knew about Heavenly Mother. I knew about Kolob, because I saw the Book of Mormon musical. No, I knew about that before that. It wasn't that hard to figure out. The age of the internet in which I was raised was able to cover all of this. I also knew and know now.
This is the generational divide. Kwaku is like, I wonder how much he knows about Jordan Peterson. I haven't heard him actually talk about Jordan Peterson at all, but like, and that's, so this Facebook Mormon group that I got introduced to has 1,000 members. And so I think, like, the best thing, I have no idea, has Jordan Peterson spoken at BYU? Because if I were the president of the LDS, like, I would have Jordan Peterson, like, I would invite him to be the president of BYU. Like, I would hand BYU over to Jordan Peterson. I would definitely have him, like, speak there always and forever.
That we have a beautiful history of seer stones, which RFM referenced in a malicious way. We know that Joseph Smith used a seer stone and he put it into a hat. And we know that tradition came from Europe. It came from John Dee, a counselor to Queen Elizabeth. He was the high-ranking member of the royal family who created the Enochian language and the Monas Hieroglyphica. He's the same person who took the Solomonian tradition from the night.
So our resident expert on Mormonism, who refuses to come on, says that Peterson did go to Utah at least. But I wonder why he's not, like, the keynote speaker. Like, he should be the commencement speaker every single year forever at BYU.
Knights Templar that date themselves back to King Solomon. These symbols of folk magic came from Europe. A lot of you are looking at me like, who is John Dee? That's because they don't tell you who these people are. John Dee was one of the people who coined the term New World and was directly responsible for the 13 colonies actually coming to the Americas. This is not just cutesy, crazy tarot card guy. We can actually trace how this folk magic happens and actually how it has Judaic and Kabbalistic roots. But to ignore all of that, to just focus on the cynical narrative of modern secular professors who don't want you to believe in God, who don't want you to believe in your eternal being, who don't want you to know that you have divine worth, want to throw all of that off the table and just make you think about a rock and a hat. The ring I'm wearing has a symbol that is Solomonian, coming from King Solomon. It's the same symbols that we saw John Dee have. It's very similar symbols to Joseph Smith's Jupiter talisman and things of that nature, which were part of this folk magic used to translate. If you think the magic or the weirdness or the stones of the translation negate the divinity, then you do not know history. You do not know European history, and you don't know a Solomonian history or Kabbalistic history.
It's all, I mean, he is Pajot. He is like symbolism, yay! And the guy on the right, who I have to wonder how old he is. He must have grown up as a Mormon, right? And then he has this propositional cascade, and he leaves, and he's bitter about it, right? And then these people like Kwaku come along, and he's a black man who knows the internet, and he's like, I don't care. I love Mormons because like it's all really nice, and these are really great people and wholesome, and like he like
I mean,
his
maybe that's what he
dream.
believes, but that's not what he said. He said it's like, no, this is really ancient and really old and goes back to John Dee and all these other people, right? And goes
Well,
back to the Kabbalah.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
right?
but that's he's playing Pajot's game. That's Pajot's game.
Okay. So you say that you believe in it because of ancient roots, but you really believe in it because it makes my family really nice?
Kind of. The ancient roots, I mean, so having that Jungian, these are ancient things that humanity needs type thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's Shane says, I think they're hiding an Urim and Tumim in the body armor. The ancientness, right, of it is when Pajot says Zeus was real, he means that. It is ancient, and that itself makes it real in a way that's not propositional.
He's real like Santa Claus is real.
Yes, and that's what pisses me off.
That's what pisses me off when people say that about your religion, right?
Well, Reform and conservative Judaism have been saying this for hundreds of years. That's what Reform and conservative Judaism believe.
Yeah, but okay, like if I say this about Santa Claus and and all my religion is watching like cartoons near Christmas time, okay, cool. Is that what their religion is? Is that what Orthodox? It's sorry, not Orthodox.
Not Orthodox, Reform and conservative.
But
yeah, that's
they
that's
what
think
it is.
They think Moses. Yeah, that is. Well, okay, that's what the rabbinate, like David Wolpe. Mm-hmm. That's how he views. That's how he views Moses. Moses is like Santa Claus.
Wow, that would piss me off. I don't understand. Like, why? How do you have a religion like that? I understand. Okay, I want to go take my family to see the Prince of Egypt. That I get. I understand. That can drive that much. Cool. No, I'm going to go to church every Saturday or whenever they go. I'm gonna.
Well, Reform for a period. There were Reform synagogues that were having Sabbath on Sundays.
Yeah.
And look, this is why you have the stereotype of the angry Baal Tshuva, the person who goes into Orthodox Judaism. Uri Zohar wrote a book, My Friends, We've Been Robbed. And like, this is one of the things I tell the guys on the Discord server is don't be an angry Baal Tshuva, because like, I felt it too. Like that people like David Wolpe, there's a reason why I have the type of anger at and I do at David Wolpe is he was dressing up as if Judaism, and for him that was fine, but that's why Reform and conservative are falling apart. They are absolutely falling apart. They have these really high paying positions as rabbis at these synagogues with really rich congregants, and nobody wants to become a reform or conservative rabbit, I call them, because now we're moving into a thing of authenticity, and people aren't willing to play the role and wear Judaism as a garb the way David Wolpe does.
Well, I wouldn't either. I don't understand how anyone could do that. Wouldn't, even if like you just go like just for your son's bar mitzvah or whatever, wouldn't you want like a real rabbi to do it?
Well, that's the thing. So my parents were really shocked. My sister, her third son, who's actually on the Discord. I won't dox him too much, but when he had his bar mitzvah, which I loved, he demanded an Orthodox rabbi. He refused to do it conservative. He demanded that the food be kosher. He demanded that everything be done correctly, including no music, no video, like a lot of stuff. And my dad was flabbergasted. He's like, why did they do it this way? And he's like, he couldn't believe that it was my nephew he's a Zoomer. And he's like, if I'm gonna have a bar mitzvah, I'm gonna have a real bar mitzvah, right?
Yeah. Right.
And so he demanded like Orthodox stuff, and my dad just could not understand it. And I was like, Dad, it's nobody but my third nephew, because my first two nephews, the older ones, they just had a normal bar mitzvah like my dad expected, with Wolpe at Sinai, and it was exactly what you should have expected from Wolpe. And like, all my nephews detest David Wolpe, and it's not just my influence, although I am pretty much an evangelist for detesting people like David Wolpe. But yeah, it's so. Again, you could write books about this stuff. It's so interesting, and with the Mormons, it's just so clear and obvious. And frankly, for me, it's like, it's miraculous, because I think this is like, God created Mormons so the Christians would understand Judaism.
Do you think it worked? Do you think Christians understand Judaism better because of Mormons?
Because of Mormonism? I think so, yeah. And I think it is working. And look, I'm one of these weird messianists. I don't know if I will see the Messiah in my lifetime, but like the Mishnah says, Lo alecha hamalacha ligmor. It is not upon you to finish the work. It is ve'ein ata rashai lehipatel mimena, and you don't have permission to stop working on it. You have to do your part of the work, and that doesn't mean it's going to finish. And I believe that this is part of the work of the Messiah, exactly like how this is what Maimonides described almost 1,000 years ago in his Mishnah Torah.
What is in particular that you say that he's describing?
So here, I'll pull it up. Let me pull up the Mishnah Torah. So this is Laws of Kings and Wars, chapter 11. And it used to be censored by the Catholic censors, and that's why if you look in Safaria, the numbering is going to be off. But chapter 11, why is this? Oh, this is chapter 12. I'm like, why is this not showing? Okay, chapter 11, halacha 4 and on, right? So just reading from Chabad, this is what Maimonides wrote almost 1,000 years ago. Jesus of Nazareth, who aspired to be the Mashiach, the Messiah, and was executed by the court, was also alluded to in Daniel's prophecy, as Ibid 11:14 states, "The vulgar among your people shall exalt themselves in an attempt to fulfill the vision, but they shall stumble." Can there be a greater stumbling block than Christianity? All the prophets spoke of a Mashiach as the Redeemer of Israel and their Savior, who would gather their dispersed and strengthen their observance of the mitzvot. In contrast, Christianity caused the Jews to be slain by the sword, their remnants to be scattered and humbled, the Torah to be altered, and the majority of the world to err and serve a God other than the Lord. Nevertheless, the intent of the Creator of the world is not within the power of man to comprehend, for his ways are not our ways, nor are his thoughts our thoughts. Ultimately, all the deeds of Jesus of Nazareth and that Ishmaelite, he means Muhammad, who arose after him, will only serve to prepare the way for Mashiach's coming and the improvement of the entire world, motivating the nations to serve God together. As Zephaniah 3:9 states, I will transform the peoples to a purer language, that they all will call upon the name of God and serve him with one purpose. How will this come about? The entire world has already become filled with the mention of Mashiach, Torah, and mitzvot. These matters have been spread to the furthermost islands, to many stubborn-hearted nations. And he wrote this before the discovery of the Americas. They discussed these matters and the mitzvot of the Torah, saying that these mitzvot were true, but were already negated in the present age and are not applicable for all time. Others say implied in the mitzvot are hidden concepts that cannot be understood simply. The Messiah has already come and revealed those hidden truths. When the true messianic king will arise and prove successful, his position become exalted and uplifted. They will all return and realize that their ancestors endowed them with a false heritage, and their prophets and ancestors caused them to err. So, as far as I'm concerned, this is by special. This is exactly what is going on.
So okay, you said he predicted the Americas.
Well, I didn't say he predicted the Americas, but he before this is hundreds of years before the discovery of the Americas.
Right.
He says that these ideas will be spread to the furthest islands.
Okay.
And so as far as I'm concerned, Christianity and Islam are just meme plexes that are carrying the meme that is Judaism, so that the entire world will know about Jewish ideas, exactly like Maimonides said. And then when the Mashiach is revealed, people will have these concepts in their mind, and they will be able to understand, oh, Judaism is true. There's one God. He's Jesus's father. There is a human Messiah who's going to reign, right? And they'll understand all this stuff.
Okay, but so I understand this, but you think it's happening now because?
Well, I think this is part of it, because we see that after 2,000 years, there's again a Noahide movement, which didn't exist when Christianity came into being. Like, all the God-fearers became Christians. And now there's once again Noahides who believe Judaism is true, and a lot of prophecies are coming true. I don't believe that the state of Israel is actually fulfillment of prophecy, but a lot of people do. And a lot of people see that as like, hey, there's more truth in Judaism. The Dead Sea Scrolls, we're getting archaeology, we're seeing a lot of truths revealing themselves. And as far as I'm concerned, what's going on with the Mormons, it's like, I keep on referencing that song by Weezer. If you want to destroy my sweater, hold this thread while I walk away. Because I think if you hold on to those things which the Torah says are most important, for example, the Shema, right? The oneness of God, it causes Christianity to unravel. and it's unraveling first with Mormonism, because one of their beliefs is that God the Father has a physical body, and like that's obviously false, right?
I mean, okay, so God permeates the universe.
Mhm.
God has, in some sense, many physical bodies, right? Because
Okay,
he's in
yeah,
me,
I
he's
mean,
in you, and he's everywhere, right?
yeah.
That said, that he has an individual physical body that like has sex and like makes God babies, right? This is a little strange. Yes, I
Well,
don't.
this
I don't
is
believe any
what
of
the
it.
Mormons believe.
Yeah. And I don't know how you can believe both, right? It's a little weird. Um, yeah, I'm not saying it's impossible, but I would like to. It does sound like a gymnastics thing. I would like to see the way to
So
put these together.
I think the LDS falling apart is like the seams where Christianity is falling apart, and ultimately everybody's going to end up realizing that Judaism was always true.
So like this isn't why they fell apart though. Like if they fell apart because like everyone realized no, the Trinity's dumb. One isn't three, right? I'd be like, oh, okay. I'd be like, he's totally right. But like, it's not the reason. It's because
You
of
hold
like
on, you do know that the LDS is non-Trinitarian, right?
I did not know this. That's kind of interesting.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Like this stuff's way too perfect for me. Like
Okay.
I'm as far as
Okay.
I'm concerned, like all this stuff is way too perfect.
So okay, my whole thing about this, right, is that like okay, so like some people would say like Christians are idolaters because of Jesus, and I would say that some people probably are, and that it's sort of obfuscated, right? Like some people, like from the very beginning, there's been like idolatry in the church. Like half the saints are from the old times, or like gods of some sort, right? And like and it's like, oh, it's like because there was idolatry there. And like, but it's obfuscated. And like, why is it obfuscated? And like to me, it seems like it's obfuscated because like the alternative to this is like Elijah and the priest of Baal, where you have to like murder them all, right? And this is not the right thing to do. I don't think God actually wants us to go murder all the pagans. And so I think that's why it's obfuscated. I think that's really, it gives us the opportunity to like be good people in a world where like an unknown percentage of people are pagans, right? But I don't know, right?
Okay, so I have to point out to the fact that in Judaism, like prophets putting people to death is categorically different from us going around killing people, because prophets do it. God is passing judgment on the people who are dying, right? And so there is a categorical difference between what Judaism teaches as far as a prophet like saying this person needs to die, and us deciding this person is a sinner and needs to die, because a prophet is announcing the judgment of God. Okay. And we believe that actually God doesn't want people to be put to death. That is one of the reasons why the temple was destroyed, because that level of prophecy would, in fact, lead to too many people being killed. And that's why the Sanhedrin, and so Pharisaic Judaism, the Talmud, the Mishnah teaches that the Sanhedrin saw too many people needed to be put to death, and they decided to stop meeting in the temple because they didn't want to put anybody to death. And that's what, so even in the Christian Bible, it says, the Sanhedrin says we can't put anybody to death. Obviously, it wasn't because the Romans didn't let them. It was because of an internal Jewish belief. Like we're this this idea that like Judaism is constantly telling people to go kill people. Like there's a reason why Hasidic Jews are not violent and not going around killing people.
So this is interesting because I did think about this little like so like it seemed to me that like if you go look at the rules for this, and I don't know them as well as you, obviously, but like it seems like okay, there are like all these weird details which make it like impossible to like stone gay people basically. And and Christianity does the same thing. It's like, hey man, you can stone people as soon as you're without sin, right? It's like, okay, so we can't do it either. And I'm like, oh, I guess something happened, and maybe there was even a change in God where it was like, there are no longer any people who were like who can love God in the way of like stoning gay people or whatever.
No,
like,
no.
sounds,
Look,
right?
Ezekiel 18. Read Ezekiel 18. God says, "I have no joy in the death of the evildoer." That's all over the Bible.
Okay.
God
So
says
why
quite
is-
clearly,
So
"I have
why is
no
there
joy."
a rule at all? Why is it there?
Because that is the rule, and if we were living, so the Torah is eternal, it is a standard. So the example we give of this is, so we teach our children to kiss the mezuzah, like, so you have the mezuzah on the doorpost, and it's very normal for Jews to teach kids to kiss the mezuzah as we walk by, and Orthodox Jews generally will, as they walk past the mezuzah, will touch it and kiss it, right?
Okay.
So what Reform and some conservative people started doing is moving the mezuzah down so that the kid could touch it without having to be held up, right?
Oh.
And this is one of the things that like Orthodox Judaism's like, no, that's not what we do. Yes, we will inevitably fail to meet up to the standards of God, but that's because God is infinite, we're finite. That's just a given, right? The question is, given our fallen nature, what is the world in which we live? Which is, we have to repent, and God gives us the opportunity to repent, and that's why God doesn't kill Cain. Like this is my constant thing to Christians. Like when Cain decided to kill Abel, God should have just killed Cain and let Abel live. Let's say you wanted to let Cain actually prove that he was going to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
When he attacked Abel,
Mm-hmm.
why didn't God make Abel stronger than Cain and stop him? Right?
So to me, that's not even the question. To me, that's not as interesting. The question for me, and because to me, like, okay, part of Christianity is that you identify with the sinner, right? That's what it is. Is that what's interesting to me is that God actually warns Cain. God could have warned Abel. God warned Cain because the guilt is actually the bad part. The guilt of Cain is like being murdered is an honor. Jesus dying is the most honorable thing in all of Christianity, right?
And
Abel dying is not that bad. But Cain being guilty is actually much worse.
Yes, and so after he killed Abel, right? What's God doing asking him, where's your brother? God doesn't know. And why doesn't God kill Cain and resurrect Abel? Like,
so to me,
that's
again,
fair,
like,
right?
I don't think that's the right question. Because like
Why?
to me, like, well, like, look, God invented death. God made the world. Death is clearly part of the plan. The first thing, right, when they leave the Garden of Eden, what does God do? Oh, he kills some animals. He gives them the furs, right? So they have clothes. Death is part of the plan. It's been there since very early. So to me, like, oh, people die. Oh, okay, that's just part of the plan. But
no,
to me,
but people are murdered. No, it was wrong. It was wrong for.
Yes.
It was wrong
totally.
for Cain to murder Abel, right?
I agree.
Okay, so why doesn't God right the wrongs?
Right the wrongs. So the death is not the wrong. To me,
yes, it is.
I don't think so. I think the wrong is the intent to kill. but that's already in Cain's heart. That's why he gets warned by God, right? Because
Roman, you're being silly.
you think
If
that's
somebody
being silly.
kills you, or have you been hi pigger, I don't know who you are. Death is a curse. I agree. No. The just thing for God to do would be to resurrect Abel and to kill Cain.
Isn't the answer apparently not?
Apparently
did.
not. Apparently not. Yes, but the law would require, and we in fact do believe that's going to happen. But why doesn't it happen? Because
So this is
Cain.
interesting because the Jewish law, right? Like my understanding is that you do kill people who murder people, right? This is what it says you're supposed to do. You don't think so? You don't think
You're
there's
not
a death
getting
penalty
it.
in Judaism?
God
Okay.
is setting the example.
Right. Exactly.
Right. And God's example is that he gives Cain the opportunity to repent.
Yes, I agree.
And so we see that actually the law is, the fair thing is that God will in fact resurrect Abel eventually.
Okay.
And Cain will realize what he did is wrong, which it will be his punishment, right?
Okay.
But
I
he
also
will
believe it.
have repented, right? And that is the world of the Messiah. When the people who have been wronged will be made right, and the people who have repented will suffer through their repentance, and the people who do not repent will actually be, which hopefully is almost nobody, and since we believe in reincarnation, right? We believe there's very few people who are actually going to go to hell. There's like the Mishnah names specific people from the Bible who are going to hell, and it's only a few people, right? But the vast majority of people, it says quite clearly, God wants people to repent.
Right. Well, yes.
Okay, we're going off on a completely other thing. It's already 8:00, and we're going to be here forever. Okay. Where was the thing I was showing? There it was. Okay.
You need to look into those things because they're incredibly important, and we should not be cynical in writing off an important part of who we are.
Time. You have 8 minutes if you want them, and then we're going to go 3-minute summary, 3-minute, and we'll be back on track.
Thank you, Sean.
You're welcome.
I think the main problem here with what Kwaku is saying is that just because he knows something about the history of the folk magic that led up to Joseph Smith using it in early 19th century America, as well as many others, doesn't somehow make it true or make it work or make it real, unless Kwaku was actually arguing that John Dee was contacting spirits and angels and receiving real and true revelation as well.
He's
so apparently,
from
he does. So
completely
I bet
modernist.
Elder Ballard is probably your favorite apostle since he used to sell Edsels, because it sounds like you'll buy anything.
I got that one too.
Liz,
I got that one too.
You heard of an
So
episode?
anyway,
Yeah.
so this is the problem. This is the problem with looking upon boomers and casting them aside and not listening to anything they have to say. Because I'm a boomer.
See, he's a boomer. It's like a complete generational thing. He keeps on being completely propositional, and these people are like, I don't care.
In that I was born in 1960. I joined the church in 1978. A lot of these people, I'm not sure about Cardin, he's a little bit older, but they don't know. You see, they don't know because they weren't there in the church in the late 1970s and the 80s when all this stuff was hidden and when nobody was talking about it. And even in the 1950s, when Joseph Fielding Smith, apostle and church historian, who wrote copiously, wrote about the seer stone and said, Joseph Smith did not use the seer stone to translate the Book of Mormon. And actually, he made a very good argument. It turned out to be wrong, but he was making a good argument. He said, why would God provide a Urim and a Thummim with the gold plates for the purpose of translating them, which we read about in the Book of Mormon? That's pretty much obvious, right? And still allow Joseph Smith to use his seer stone that he used in treasure digs. Why would God go to that effort and then let Joseph Smith use, I think Joseph Fielding Smith called it an obviously inferior method of translation?
So this is part of the problem, because now you have the narrative, and it's not working, right? And you do need to be propositional. That's the problem. I think the Midnight Mormon guys are not properly giving propositional truth its due.
And he had a very good point. Of course, that would just be the tip of the iceberg, because then the next issue comes up is, why did the Nephites have to create these gold plates in the first place? Why did they have to inscribe on them? They talk about how difficult it was to inscribe on these gold plates, and it would be difficult. And then to carry them around with them, and Moroni's got to lug them from Mesoamerica all the way up to New York via Manti, where he stops to dedicate the freaking temple, according to Brigham Young. That's a long trip when you're lugging all these gold plates. So, and then he shows up to Joseph Smith, right? In the evening, he shows up in the bedroom, manages not to wake up his brothers. That was good, because only Joseph Smith woke up. His brothers stayed asleep while Moroni was there in that brilliant light with the kind of sexy robe open down, into the bosom. No garments, apparently, for Moroni. And yeah, so all this stuff, all this stuff happens, right? All this stuff happens that talks about how critical these plates are. They have to be created. They have to be lugged. They have to be buried. Moroni has to show up. He has to, and then Joseph Smith, for crying out loud, he's going to all this trouble of hiding them, right? Because everybody wants to try and find them. And I'm not sure.
This is a completely modernist frame, and he doesn't even understand that they don't care.
The church teaches even right now that the people who were trying to find him were Joseph Smith's associates on his treasure days. And they thought, oh, Joseph Smith actually found something. Oh, well, part of that's ours too, because we've got articles of incorporation that says your percentage, my percentage, and we need what's ours. So all this stuff revolves around it. And then to find out that Joseph Smith, when he's translating the Book of Mormon, never looked at the gold plates at all.
Okay, today is June 1st. Please say your name and spell it.
So
I'm
this
God,
is weird, because you can always say like
G-O-D.
it's a miracle. Like you can be like, oh, it's a miracle, right? Is that the answer? Like if you were them?
Well,
Like if you're gonna play that game, like okay.
they don't care. Like,
Well, yeah. But
the
reason
guy
is 'cause
who's
the answer
talking
is-
about the guy who's talking about his daughter almost dying, like there's nothing you can tell him about propositionally that's going to make him lose that emotional experience of his daughter almost dying and him praying to God and like feeling like it was,
Sure.
It's-
The Holy Spirit was there, hopefully. And
yeah. He might as well be talking to a wall.
To some people, it raises the question, how come? Why all this trouble with the gold plates? And then it starts to sound sort of like a story that Joseph Smith made up and that many people were willing to believe. Also over here, talking about boomers and generational arguments, things that appeal to different generations. There's probably some truth to that, probably. But I believe that logic is not generational. And
He's completely wrong.
common sense is not generational.
You can clap. It was going to start, then it just stopped.
And I think that people who are 28, 38, 12, I think they understand common sense. And common sense speaks to people because we're people and we all understand common sense. Sometimes faith gets in the way of common sense if it is misplaced. And the problem then is that you have to argue against your common sense in order to defend your faith. I went through that so many times. In law, it's called special pleading. I finally got sick and tired of making excuses for Joseph Smith that I would never make for anybody else in any other religion or in no religion whatsoever.
See, and that's the thing. We do have a propositional core to us, and at some point you have to be propositional or you're going to lose connection to reality. And this is where I keep on bringing in Rabbi Soloveitchik's Halachic Man and what he says in the note back there. I have a whole video about it, the Rav. And it's you cannot completely dismiss the propositional, which is what they're doing, because he refuses to actually talk about everything else. And people who have gone through the, like, okay, you criticized my modernity, like, okay, you postmodernists, you dissolved everything that modernity had, and even let's say it's true, fine, like I accept your criticisms. Now what? And that's the answer, like that nobody has for these people. The Midnight Mormons people are like, I'm just going to do without propositional knowledge, and the Radio Free Mormon guy is like stuck on. I mean, he's not stupid, but he's stuck on stupid. He's stuck on, okay, I have these questions and I'm going to deconstruct this modernity, but what do you have next? What do you build on?
So apparently it's social justice, but I don't get it. Like, I don't understand how that became the religion.
It's not. It's not a religion. It's an ideology, and an ideology is a crippled religion. What they are, they are. These people are running on the fumes of the modernity that they are deconstructing, and that's what people like Tom Holland and Douglas Murray understand when they say that I'm an atheist, but I'm a Christian atheist, right? And that's what Tom Holland and honestly, like the whole this corner of the internet is actually like, yes, we have a lot of people who believe propositionally in Judaism or Christianity. I believe propositionally in Judaism, but like, okay, let me grant you all your postmodernist critiques. What do you do then? And if your answer is sit in your mom's basement masturbating, take drugs, smoke, get high, and when you get old, just shoot yourself, which is the answer that they're giving, that's not an answer. That's not a happy life. That's suffering. And that's why you get Vervaeke, of all people, trying to make a religion that's not a religion. He's trying to find some modernist way of dealing with this stuff. And that's why he's engaging with Pajot and Vanderklay.
Do you think it'll work?
I don't think you can create a religion that's not a religion. I think you need God. At the very least, you have to start with Spinoza's God. But even with Spinoza's God, you at the very least need to have some. Yeah, you have to have a narrative. And frankly, like if I believed that Moses never lived and the Jews were never in Egypt, right? I actually believed that there were there were propositional problems, like core propositional problems with Judaism, the way there are with Christianity and Mormonism and Islam and everything else. I would have to reformulate.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the argument I had with Chezi. He's like, he says he doesn't have to reformulate. I think you do. I think too many people in our side of the internet are like just making the argument that it's fine. It doesn't have to be propositionally true. I don't think that works. And that's why I'm a Jew. I am what I am, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or Brigham Young, or whoever. And I finally had to stop and say, I'm not being honest with myself. I'm not being honest with the facts. I need to treat these people, even though I revere them as prophets, the same way I would treat anybody else. And in fact, they should be on a higher standard of behavior.
See, that's the thing. He's saying, I have to be honest. I have to be honest. And you want people to be honest. And that's what the Midnight Mormons guys are not properly appreciating, is the value of believing in the God of truth and having that quiet confidence that if I learn something true, right, then it matters.
They should do things better. I know a lot of times the temptation, I've been there, I was an apologist, okay, for the church. The temptation is, oh, well, we're going to make an excuse for this apostle for doing something wrong. Or like, Elder Ballard, right? Elder Ballard says that.
Sorry, Pigger, I don't know who you are, but that is not Rabbinic Judaism's answer. You're just wrong.
Nobody in the church, none of the leaders of the church have ever hidden anything from anybody. Oh, what a whopper. That was like 4 Pinocchios on that one. And we make excuses for them when actually what we should be doing is holding them to a higher standard because they're apostles of Jesus Christ, or at least they claim to be. So those are my feelings on the subject. I hope I've covered everything. I will say one thing that I do want to say before talking about Quaker and talking about loving other people, which I think is important. I can't speak for everybody, and I wouldn't presume to speak for you. But my experience in Mormonism is that Mormonism taught me to love people, other people, in spite of who they are. And now that I have transcended and graduated from Mormonism, I understand that I can love people because of who they are.
So that's the thing. he has, and this is how you end up with a religion with absolutely zero forgiveness, zero capacity to see people as faulty, to see yourself as faulty, and why, like, it's such a disastrous ideology that where they're constantly eating each other up, and they can't have a community like the LDS does, because he has no concept of agape, like John Vervaeke talks about being the innovation of Christianity, and I would actually say is the innovation of Judaism. The fact that, like, just because you were created in the image of God, I have an obligation to love you, and that God is the ultimate judge, and there are things which are beyond me, and I have to have. His religion has zero forgiveness, and without forgiveness, you're just dead.
On the Book of Mormon, a 3-minute
Pigger, I like you. I don't know who you are, but I like you mostly. You're wrong about Judaism.
summary. A 3-minute summary.
Sorry, just understand.
We're gonna get back to the original.
Okay, is this a response to RFM or on the Book of Mormon?
Anything you want. Anything you want to say.
Responding to what he just said.
Okay, all right.
Yes, that's
Okay.
what we should-
I know I messed
Justin
it up.
Bieber's last
You're good.
album was an abject failure.
No, so
It's actually kind of
what we just heard to me felt like a bit of a rant. I want to keep this precise in understanding the fact that you can take a very cynical view of history, and you can say, oh, he did this and he did this and he did this, and the history of the magic doesn't actually matter. But ultimately what that means is RFM just does not believe in that magic. He just does not believe in that divinity. From what I know, you don't believe in really anything. And that's okay. But this idea that, oh, common sense leads you to be atheistic or secular, it's just not true. Try this out. After you leave it here, go to a Barnes & Noble and go to the self-transformation section and just look at the crystals and tarot cards books that are flying off the shelves by millennials and Gen Z. And I want you to think about that specifically because even though the secularist narrative has been pushed forward, people naturally still go to spirituality and faith. It will not go away. The magic does not go away. No matter how many PDFs and articles you write, it will not go away because there's something intrinsically a part of every human being that wants that. And when you take it away, you get sad. When you take it away, you become unhappy. I know there's a lot of jokes being made about Moroni sexy robe or whatever you want to say, but this isn't really humorous. We're talking about
Pigger, I have to say, I don't actually think that Claire is one person. I really think that there's several people running that account, and they're different people.
people's families being split apart because of religion, divorce is happening. We're talking about children in schools, possibly taking upon a lot of transformative surgeries with gender and things of that nature. We're talking about very, very important specific things. Thanks, Siri. We're talking about very, very important specific things. And it's not really funny. It's very serious. A lot of ex-Mormons in here know, I know you know, the trauma of leaving the faith is not that funny. So let's treat it seriously. Our history does matter, and our spirituality does matter. And you can villainize the prophets who've created a pretty great church where you find community in just about anywhere you go. And you can say, oh, it's all lies, they're bad people, the art is bad, and now I have to defend bad people, and I can just love people now that I've left exactly how they are, because yes, everybody matters, we all get a trophy. Or we can be real and preserve what we have, and we can actually live up to what we're supposed to be living up to as Christians. The magic is real, the spirituality does matter, and your secular narrative will lead people to be miserable. It will lead people to get divorced, to self-harm, and do all manner of terrible things. That's the reality, and that's what we've seen. So we can laugh at it, or we can deal with the reality, but our society is falling literally because of the things you are espousing.
Hold on, wait, they got 10 seconds, 10 seconds.
I would just say I agree that you need to use logic and reason, and that if the institution is strong, it will stand and being subject to that logic and reason. I don't think logic and reason can work if they are under the duress of hyper-cynicism. And my only fear with the modern secular progressive narrative is it cultivates a cynicism that doesn't allow common sense to truly function.
Okay,
Yeah.
you guys are doing really
I'll give
good.
it 30
Audience,
seconds of my time.
audience, be respectful. They're trying to get stuff out. I know you like points being made. Please try to be respectful. They're representing they're your voice. Let them be your voice. You have 3 minutes for summary, brother RFM.
Oh,
yeah,
summary of
whatever
about the Book of Mormon.
Summary of Book of Mormon and what's been said so far.
Okay. Well, I agree with Kwaku that there will always be this desire for the magic, for the supernatural, for the religious in people. I think probably predominantly, if history is any indicator. But just as sure as that, there will always be unscrupulous people there to take advantage of it and to use that in order to aggrandize themselves, perhaps with money, perhaps with fame, perhaps with sex. You know, the three biggies that the Book of Mormon tells us about, right? So I think that is always, but it's like P.T. Barnum said, right? There's a sucker born every minute. And I was a sucker for 40 years. Absolutely. I admit to it. I will also say about the Book of Mormon that even though, I mean, I've read it, 30 times now, know it backward and forward, have many passages memorized of the Book of Mormon. I think there is much to recommend it. But I also, earlier this year, read View of the Hebrews, which was a book that was written earlier than the Book of Mormon. And what it does is it shows what the common understanding in Joseph Smith's day and time was about the Native Americans, that they were descendants of Jews, that they came over here a long time ago, and then they became these people, this large people. Part of them were white, part of them were dark-skinned, and the white people destroyed the dark-skinned people who remained alive when the colonists arrived, right? And I realized, once again, that the Book of Mormon is exactly the kind of book that we would expect to be written in the early 19th century as a history of the American Indians. And I will tell you also that I hear sometimes from apologists, I mean, heaven forbid, I probably made the argument myself, that as time goes by, archaeology and discoveries tend to support the Book of Mormon more and more. Well, I will tell you, back in Joseph Smith's day, basically everybody believed that the American Indians, the Native Americans, were descendants of Jewish people. Today, nobody does, except for literalist believers of the Book of Mormon.
Okay, thank you. Will you put your microphone on the other pocket? The receiver.
Oh, this thing down here? My other pocket?
There's a short circuit in there.
Okay.
Do you have a cell phone in your pocket? Sometimes it interferes.
No. Oh, I do. No, that's my wallet. Wait a second. Is my cell phone in here too? Oh, it is.
Boomer.
I am such a boomer. And do you know when I got my airline reservations, I actually printed them out and took them to the airport too? Here. I'll tell you what, if I could just, hey, can you hold on to this?
Okay.
I don't even get the boomer joke. That's how undetached. I have no clue. I don't know why that was funny, but it was hilarious, I guess.
Does this backdrop look like the Partridge Family school bus or what?
Nick at Night. I grew up on Nick at Night.
All right, you guys. LDS doctrine and practice to Midnight Mormon crew. Are LDS doctrines eternal in nature? Yes. If so, talk to us about plurality of wives, Joseph Smith's practice of it, and do you personally believe that the specific doctrine is in fact eternal and that it will be practiced after this life in the celestial glories by faithful members who choose to embrace it here or there? To add flavor to the mix, do you believe that Brigham and Joseph, even though the fleshly practice doesn't continue in the present day church today, are still sealed to all of their wives eternally? Do you believe that the two women to whom the present day prophet Russell M. Nielsen is sealed to will be his for eternity after this life? And then finally, and you can just take the zeitgeist of this and
There's a lot there.
and finally, are you under the impression that the practice may someday return to mortal members here on earth? And if it does, would you participate in it if it was deemed requisite for the highest degree of salvation?
You want me to go? You want to go? Okay.
So I actually so there are people who are like, no, actually Joseph Smith never participated in polygamy, and it's all Brigham Young, and that that Brigham Young that Brigham Young and the current church attribute it to Joseph Smith falsely in order to vindicate Brigham Young, who was the really bad person. So Pigger says both Christianity and Rabbinic Judaism are deviations from the Torah. I just made a video I highly recommend you watch on what is Talmud, and I think that clearly refutes what you're saying.
Okay, go for it.
So I'm actually the only one on stage with a immediate history of polygamy in their family. My mom was a polygamous wife in the Moorish Science Temple religion. My mother fled when I was just about a baby to Texas. I've seen the effects that intense, small cults have on people. My mother lived it. I've talked with her about it. There's some crazy stories. And what I can tell you about the polygamy in LDS history, and polygamy from really being one generation removed, is that nobody understands it except those in it. So when we look at polygamy and we look at the way it happened in the 19th century and it happened with Joseph Smith, we can make a million assumptions. And you can take the cynical assumption and you can take the positive assumption. The reality is none of us were there. What we know is that some of the women were fine with it and some of them were not. We can make an assumption and say, oh, they were coerced, or we can leave it up to their narrative and believe their voices. I don't know if it's going to continue in the next life, but we've seen marriage transform radically in the last couple of years. It wasn't until 2014 that the Supreme Court allowed two men who love each other and two women who love each other to actually get married. We don't have this actual grasp of marriage that we think we do. Sociologically, we've seen it change. We're going to see it continue to change. So unless you're a sociologist and a historian on marriage in ancient Samaria, Greece, Rome, Israel, and Nauvoo, none of us really have the most perfect understanding of it. But it does not mean that you can't live a meaningful life. It does not mean that, my mother's a testament of it. It does not mean that those who are involved in it were just evil, bad people. Because I don't think my father was an evil, bad person. So, you know, this is a subject that's brought up to bring out a lot of emotions in people. But let's take a step back and understand that none of us were there. And as someone who's one generation removed, I can tell you that any assumptions we want to make may very well be incorrect. To me, I can't speak for what happens in heaven. None of us even know that much about heaven. But if you want to make the assumption that Mormon heaven is horrible for women and it's terrible, then you don't really know what heaven is. And that's a purposeful assumption, so those will be insecure and discomforted by their faith. But we know that heaven is supposed to be all things good, and we even know that Mormon heaven has multiple layers and kingdoms that I believe two a man and a woman will be in, and perhaps even a man and a man.
Somebody asked me why I don't have an ad blocker, and I said,
Yeah.
I don't think it's ethical.
I don't know why you clap, but you know, it's heaven. It's great. So that's just what I want to say, that you can't be too cynical on this subject. And let's be quite charitable in understanding that nobody here, I'm assuming, is a polygamist or is one generation removed from it.
How much time we have?
I'm a few generations removed from it. I actually got to meet my great grandmother's sister wife.
Oh, you have 5 minutes.
Okay. I'll just say my 2 cents worth. I really like the word that Quaker used of a charitable interpretation of polygamy. We all face it in a modern context. Polygamy is weird, but I've always been a fan of history, and so weird things in history were nothing new to me. And I think a lot of our modern inquiry into polygamy is looked at 2 ways. I struggle sometimes when I believe you. First off, I believe you that when you're telling your lived experience, that you're saying that maybe you felt in the 70s and 80s that some of these things were hid from you or whatever. I would prefer to look more charitably on our ancestors as having been so occupied with the positive expanse of the church that they didn't get into the details. But I don't know what to think sometimes, because my entire life I've known about the seer stones. I've known about polygamy. I've known about the Mountain Meadows massacre. I look at this modern argument that the church is hiding something from you, polygamy included, and I just think every one of these weird things you've mentioned, from the Kinderhook plates to polygamy to et al., because you're a lawyer and I got to use these cool terms, right? Hey, I got a wink out of them. So all of these, I could go into any chapel in our church right now and blow the dust off of that 12-volume set of history of the church, and it's in there. And so I view that not as an indictment of Mormonism at large, but an indictment of us as a people and a culture for not having taken seriously the inquiry of our faith. And I think we should, weird stuff like polygamy included, because it shows us that as flawed individuals, we still have a place in history. We can repent of these weird flaws. We can fix them, and we can do it generally through spirituality and modern revelation. And then in regards to the weirdness of polygamy, like, first off, yes, I'd practice polygamy if it was with you, Sean. You know what I'm saying?
Don't
second,
tempt me.
second
Don't
one
tempt
right
me.
here, you know? The other one is, I think we need to look more charitably back on it. A lot of our primary sources are East Coast authors who are looking for sensational headlines, because polygamy, after all, it is sensational. And also, when I read the original writings of Brigham Young and Joseph Smith, it becomes obvious to me, everybody knows the plural marriages, but nobody knows the plural brotherhoods. There were sealings between men who wanted to be brothers. If I loved Brad because I'd served with him, both in a mission and maybe in a war or something, I could seal myself to him as a brother. And it becomes plainly obvious that there was a very wide breadth of non-sexual element to polygamy. And Joseph Smith was trying to create a worldwide universal human family because he viewed that as the most beautiful gift God gave us. So I think we need to be more charitable when we look into our historical inquiry of what polygamy was.
And I'll be real brief with this, but I believe that the doctrines are eternal, 100%. You see them in the Old Testament. You see polygamy was practiced at a time. You have it talked about in the Book of Mormon that there are times that God allows for this, times that God encourages it and commands it. I am personally descended from polygamists. And I think if I were asked to live the law of polygamy, I would do exactly what my first polygamous ancestor did and talk to my wife about it, pray about it to know about what is the true thing we should be doing, and try to find what it is that we need to be doing. Because I think we get this weird idea that God wanted for us to have an easy church. I don't know why there is a milieu there that people are like, why would he let this happen if this is so difficult? Jesus literally said to people, like, this is a hard saying if you can hear it. I think that this is a difficult thing for us to deal with. And that is one of the hallmarks of the true church of God, that there will be difficulty, but we need to wrestle through those things in order to grow and become better.
Hey, Sean, can I ask a question?
You have 50 seconds.
Yeah, so I guess what's interesting about polygamy is whether you, no, I'll let you have some of my time, because honestly, this is a legit question, is that, now I get it, it was delayed, bro, chemo brain. Polygamy is weird, let's just face it. There, you got your soundbite, especially in a modern context. I only believe it was ever instituted when God wanted to raise up a righteous generation, whether it's in the Old Testament or in the 1800s. And my fear as I look at what leftist secularism has done to our country, there's only 2 states that actually have a replacement birth rate right now. It's South Dakota and Utah. Now, Utah's not polygamous, but it still has that cultural push of having children and creating more family units. So I'm curious, just from your standpoint, because I really want to know, this is an honest question, is if the alternative to religious traditional family is the society we're living in now, however you want to call it, how are we replacing ourselves? Because that which is not sustainable won't sustain itself.
And we're there.
Like,
actually over. But
okay.
I want to thank you so far for your honest answers and answering the questions. I really do. And it's going well. You have 8 minutes to respond to their question. And the question I gave them. Go ahead, my brother.
I'm of the firm opinion that it would probably be best if a lot of our society did not replace itself.
And this is in
Yeah.
fact the anti-natalist, anti-humanist. He's and so a lot of people seem to be deconstructing f- for because of the postmodernist criticisms, which Mormonism is particularly susceptible to. They're deconstructing into this postmodernist ideology, which, like he's showing, is anti-natalist, anti-human, and has no forgiveness to it.
Yeah, I wish though that like it seems like there's like wisdom. There's like this grain of wisdom there that like, oh, we should like make a world where we'd want to live in and we want more people in it, right? And like none of it's there.
Look, if you have no forgiveness, if you don't see the value in other people, like when you're driving down the street and there's traffic and you don't actually view all the other people as like images of God, and they're just in your way.
Oh God. Yeah.
They're just in your way. And if you have no view of eternity or the future and stuff, and it's like an old person, like let the old person die. Like why are we even bothering with this? Pigger, the one I just put up, what is Talmud? Number one, Lobster. Hello, you're new. Oi, is this mainstream LDS or not? So the guys on the left, the Midnight Mormons, they're mainstream LDS. The guy on the right, Radio Free Mormon, is an ex-Mormon.
Over 50% of males don't reproduce right now.
Well, something also that you had mentioned, Cardin, which was a classic apologetic trope, which is that when you get blindsided because the church has not been telling you stuff, has been hiding it. What was it that Elder Ballard and President Oak said in that face-to-face devotional promo, right? Says, oh yeah, some of these questions are really, really tough, right? And then Elder Ballard says, those are the questions. He actually said it. That's when you say, oh my gosh, I can't believe he said it. That's what they do. They avoid the tough questions.
Oh, hey, I'm Jewish, and I believe Roman is, well, Roman's not the host, only I'm the host. I love you, Roman, but you're not the host.
I understand.
I believe you're a Christian, right?
Yeah.
Well, you're
yeah.
charismatic Christian, right?
Something like that.
Some form, but you're not Mormon.
I am not Mormon. This is true.
Yeah. So there are no Mormons on here. So we welcome Mormons, but I have no Mormons on here.
They give you the milk before the meat. The milk before the meat, isn't that funny? The funny thing is, I've lived for 40 years. They never get to the meat. It's always like that 1980s commercial. Where's the beef? Well, they keep promising it. And they say it's in the temple. And then I went to the temple. And I tried to love the temple. I really did. I went there the first time in November of 1979, in Provo Temple, right after I got to the MTC. I tried. I really tried. But then, after so long, and after reading apologists talking about, no, it's not Masonry, no, it's not Masonry, no, it's not Masonry, well, guess what? It's Masonry. It is warmed over Masonry. It's like there's a guy out front saying, get your Masonic rituals, get your warmed over Masonic rituals, and a program. That's really all it is. And the same movie, it's not that great the first time, I gotta tell you, okay? Maybe you like it. If you do.
Masonry's pretty good. And like, again, he's just dismissing everything that the Midnight Mormons care about.
God bless you. But it was a good thing they had people standing up and sitting down all the time. Otherwise, it's snoozeville. All right. So anyway, that's that. But what Cardin was saying was this great trope. I got off on a tangent, believe it or not. It's perfect. Okay. It's always our fault. That's the deal. Whenever we don't find
out. I'm actually mainstream LDS myself, so I would like to guest, but I'm not sure I've got the patience to deal with this. I put a link in the chat to my Discord server. If you would like to come on my Discord server and to talk, I would love to have you. I am trying to engage with Mormons, especially Mormons who are into the whatchamacallit. Oh, you're not the person who CW invited, are you? but yeah, you would be welcome if you want to come on. If you want to DM me on Discord, or actually you can just Google my name and find my cell phone number. And if you want to text me, I will text you back a link and you can come on. Or if you want to come on some other time, I would love to talk to you.
Doubt about stuff. It's our fault because we didn't study enough, because we didn't find the stuff the church is hiding from us. That's the deal. Remember the 5 rules that the church plays by? I can't remember them. I hope somebody here will. Bill? We're going to hide stuff from you. Then we're going to lie about hiding stuff from you. And finally, at the end, if you talk about the stuff we're hiding from you, we will hide you. That's what the church does. That's the rules they play by. So it is always our fault, because it is never the fault. Nothing is ever the fault. I'm sorry, I'm getting exercised.
Yeah, Claire likes to troll my channel.
Nothing is ever the fault of church leaders. Nothing. If you are a faithful Mormon and you do what you're supposed to do, and we know this because the church leaders tell us that it is wrong to what, everybody? Even if, by the way, just so everybody can hear it, because I know we're recording, but I think everybody said was, it is wrong to criticize the leaders of the church. Even if the criticism is true. So it can never be their fault, which means it always has to be ours. And we wonder why there's so much depression among the Latter-day Saints, so much anxiety, so much toxic perfectionism. I won't speak for anybody else except me. And boy, did I experience it in spades. Because no matter how much I did, it was never enough. It was never good enough. And there was always talks being given, whether in sacrament meeting or general conference, that let me know there was more that I had to do in order to be acceptable to God. I know that one of these over here, one of these people, I think it might have been Quaker, was talking about a relationship with Jesus Christ. Within the context of the Mormon church, please don't make me laugh. All right. The Mormon church is not about bringing people to a relationship with Jesus Christ. It's about bringing people to a relationship with Russell M. Nelson. And that's it. The church is there as a mediator.
He's just reducing it. And it's just for, like, again, he's not, this is the hermeneutics of suspicion. And for the people on the left, they just don't care. And frankly, this Russell Nelson guy, he seems like a really nice guy. Like, I looked at his biography, like he was a cardiologist, and like they've built something rather.
Is he the president of LDS?
Yeah, he's their current prophet.
Okay.
Between the members and Jesus Christ. You can't get to Jesus Christ without the leadership of the church, without the priesthood they claim to hold, without the ordinances of salvation and the ordinances of exaltation. But what they end up being is like the very...
Yeah, this is what I didn't like yesterday. I spoke to a missionary, and he's like, yeah, you can only come to the church through this. You can only come to God through this. And it's like, no, that's not, does not work.
Same Pharisees in the New Testament that Jesus Christ told them, not only do you not go into heaven, you forbid anybody else to go into heaven too. And that's what I see over and over with the leaders. By the way, nice straw man, it's not malicious, okay? What I'm saying is not malicious. It's after 40 years of hard study and hard knocks in the real world. And that's sometimes what you get when you're a boomer. But the deal is this. The leaders are not trying to be malicious. Where's my time?
You have 3 minutes.
Left?
I owe him 30 seconds.
Okay. The leaders are not trying to be malicious, all right? They are not sitting back there. Or what was it Elder Holland who said recently in, what was that fireside something? Oh, was it England? Yeah, in London. You know, well, we weren't just sitting over there rubbing our hands this morning and thinking, what fairy tales can we tell the members of the church, right?
Number one Lobster says RFM is bullshitting. The doctrine is the church's mistakes are the fault of the church, not the fault of God. And honestly, this is something everybody who's religious understands, and he doesn't. And because of that, he becomes an there's a reason why these people become anti-humanist. They're angry.
Well, of course he's not. What the leaders have been doing since, well, probably since the beginning, is they are withholding. First off, they know the church is true. Let's start with that as a premise. I don't go along with people who think that, oh, they are Machiavellian up there and just going, we know this isn't true and we're just doing it for the money and the tithing and all this kind of stuff. I don't believe that's the case. I believe that the leaders of the church, just like me for 30 some odd years, knew this church was true and want to bring it to other people and want to keep members from leaving the church because your exaltation depends upon it. And the exaltation of converts depends upon joining the church and being faithful. Well, that's not going to happen if we tell everything that we know. That's why we're not going to tell you, speaking for the leaders of the church, we're not going to tell you the negative things of the church. Not because we're being malevolent, but because we're doing it for God. Because only in this church can you be saved. Negative information about the church will keep people from coming in and cause people to leave. Therefore, we will tell only one side of the history, the correlated, whitewashed, sanitized version of the history. And Boyd K. Packer was nice enough in 1980 or 1981 in his talk The mantle is far, far greater than the intellect. When he was talking to all the teachers in the church, all the CES instructors, all the BYU professors, and he said it. He said, there's all this negative stuff about the church. You are not to talk about it. And you don't repeat it. It's like disease germs, and maybe you'll catch it. You only talk about the faith-promoting side of the church. And that's the context for the famous quote, not all truths are useful. Okay? So they are on record. And that was published as the first article in BYU Studies after he gave the talk. So they are on record. This is the plan. This is the agenda. And then Boyd K. Packer told all the professors and CES instructors, if you don't go along with me in hiding this stuff from the members of the church and your students, then you will be looking for new employment, and you'll probably be spending eternity in a very warm place.
All right, perfectly done. Format, yeah.
Yeah.
Are we?
So I want to give number one Lobster a chance to respond. With regard to salvation, my understanding of the church is most religions will save you, but only our church will exalt you to the highest kingdom of in heaven. And again, like I see a lot of stuff in Mormon doctrine, which is closer to what I would consider the truth, which is Judaism. And one of them is this idea of like, it's not a binary and how wrong the binary of salvation is. But again, I think they get it wrong in many ways. I think judgment is individual. So yeah.
Saying what we want, or are we responding to the topic? Because I thought this was supposed to be about polygamy, but this
is what happens in the format when I presented you with a question about polygamy. You gave your response. He has a chance to respond and say whatever he's going to use his time for, and you have now 3 minutes to summarize. I can't monitor what everyone says. Now I'm going to give him a question, and then you can use your time to say what you want. Yeah. So you have 3 minutes summary to take that question.
All right. I do find it interesting that you had a full 8 minutes and yet still said so little about polygamy. I feel like there's a ton to say. So I just...
None of it's any good. Sorry.
Hey, I'm a product of polygamy. I think I'm pretty good.
With one exception, and that's you.
So, I don't know. As I'm listening to what you're saying, I feel like you have unrealistic expectations of history. I think that it's interesting to look at, even like we talked about, where we are at now with this debate. It was difficult for us to even nail down a story that people probably don't even agree in the audience as to what actually happened to get us here on this debate stage tonight. We can't even establish that as truth. And yet you have expectations that the entire church should have a solid narrative the entire time. You talk about this as though you have people hiding history all over the place, and yet they just so happen to say the very things that on the record that you are now using to say that they're liars. We recognize that it is not the fault of church leaders. I think that's an oversimplification of it. We should not criticize church leaders, not because they're never wrong, but because being critical is unproductive. I think that when we look at, I know it's funny to hear me say that when most of what we do is be critical, right? Like it's here we are, it's human nature. But I think that when you look at the things being the fault of church leaders, I don't think any communication problem in the world is ever a one-way street. I don't think that the church tries to tell its members that it is 100% our fault if we misunderstood something. I have never had that impression ever in my life from the church. I have never had the church tell me that it is my fault that I don't understand things. I have had the impression that I've been misunderstanding, but it is not from the church that comes.
How much time we have?
You've got a minute and 10.
Okay. I guess my only question is sometimes I really struggle with these as well, because I just think, where are you saying it was hidden? There's this narrative in ex-Mormonism that the internet blew the doors off of something, and all of a sudden we could communicate and share these lies that were some kind of secret gnosis that was hidden from us before. But I remember in 1995, 96, pre-internet, doing seminary where we talked about the seer stones. We talked about polygamy. We talked about many of these, what I found interesting, and I accept it. I'm a weirdo. I'm the guy that will actually buy the Strange Historic book and blow off the dust from B.H. Roberts' History of the Church and actually read it. So I don't know necessarily how to respond to that. And as much as, yes, I rip on boomers, it's a colloquialism that millennials and Gen Zers use to mean people older than us. I actually have a lot of respect for what boomers did. And I think some of these arguments are natural consequences. Did you know over 50% of the current membership of the church was baptized because of the standardized discussions that were accumulated and taught by boomers? And in the wild expansion and success of the church throughout the 60s, 70s, and 80s, they went back to basics because the basics were good. And it was up to us personally to find a lot of those details. I don't see how with the wild expansion, every jot and tittle could be taught. We have to be more charitable to our ancestors that built this thing. We can't be that cynical.
Thank you. Okay.
I once heard a Jew say, Mormons understand money. It's not evil. Like all things on earth, it is the property of God, and you borrow it from him. If you are righteous, God will bless you, including money. And I mean, I think Mormons have a better understanding of a lot of things than most Christians do. I have a lot of criticisms as well, and frankly, I think we can have this discussion, but as far as this discussion that they're having, they're just talking past each other.
RFM, your question, you get 8 minutes. They'll respond any way you want to what he says for 8 minutes.
We don't have to stay on topic.
No, I mean, obviously, ideally, yes. Ideally, yes. And many of you have stayed on topic. RFM, suppose you can only talk about 3 things for a year on your program about Mormonism. 3 things that you find absolutely reprehensible, unforgivable, needs to change, and people need to understand everything they can about these 3 things about the church today. You get 3 and put them in order. Number 1, number 2, and number 3. All right? What will you cover and why? You have 8 minutes. Go, brother.
Thank you. I think that one of the things I'd want to cover, and which we do cover on a number of episodes, has to do with social issues. And it has to do with, right now today, the reluctance of the church to accept on an equal footing in its membership gay people, lesbian people, trans people, and
it's just postmodernist talking points. My question to Mr. Secular here is, why should we accept gay people? There's a reason why all the materialists murdered gay people. The communists murdered gay people, and the fascists, the Nazis, murdered gay people. Because if you're just going to be a materialist, what's more a waste of space than a gay couple? Like, they're not going to have kids. They're a complete waste of resources. Like, why would what do I want with a gay couple, right? Unless I can somehow materially benefit from them. What is the material reason? Like, how do you justify, like, and this is what Tom Holland says, like, he's coming from he's criticizing Christianity from a Christian base where we have to believe that people like have a value. Where's this value you're coming from? Why do I have to value anyone? And in fact, like, his antinatalism, right? What they're not going to procreate. Be done with them. Like, he doesn't even understand what his thing is. If it's bigoted to call Muslims homophobic, it's bigoted to call any other religion homophobic. Yeah, I mean, they are, in fact, I mean, the level of Mormon apologetics is actually kind of disappointing. I mean, John Dehlin and this guy are just so obviously like bad. I don't know what's going on in the ex-Mormon community, but it's strange to me that the Mormon, this corner of the internet, is so detached from the rest of the Peterson thing. But I guess because Mormons are so insular, that's why I'm trying to kind of create some sort of bridge between the Mormon Petersonians and this corner of the internet.
any other kinds of people.
Oh, by the way, looks like we may kind of like have a Mormon segment at the conference in Thunder Bay. Can't announce it yet, but like if you're a Mormon Lobster, like consider coming to Thunder Bay if you can.
Well, I'm sorry if I'm forgetting some of the different categories, but I think you know what I'm talking about. Every time the church seems to take one step forward, then something happens when Elder Holland gets up and starts talking about muskets. And everybody goes, what? Especially from Elder Holland. I've heard from a number of seasoned members of the Church Boomers how disappointed they were with what was said, not only because of what was said, but because of who said it. They had an idea that their hopes were pinned on Elder Holland to be a moderating influence. And then he gets up at BYU in August of this year, 2021, for those listening in the future, and he starts talking about musket fire. And I know that you did an episode defending him on that. The deal is this. No, he wasn't saying go out and get your muskets and start shooting gay people. We understand that. The deal is that in an environment where in the church, we have got extremely fringe, right, DesNat people who are very willing to take up arms against a sea of homosexuals, and by opposing in them, forgive me, Shakespeare, using that kind of language is not cautious. It is not prudent. And a good, wise leader recognizes the fact that there are people who will hear that message and may go out and do things that the leader.
Based on what? I mean, if I were to make this type of criticism on any of the stuff he said all the time to this point, right? There are people who can take his words and go and try to assassinate President Nelson. Like this is so bankrupt on so many levels.
Would never come out and want anybody to do. You've got to be careful about that. So the other thing that was talked about over here about homosexuals. I mean, Quaker said time will come, hopefully, when gay man and gay man will be sealed in the temple. Okay.
Hey, so Alabama, Gavin lives in Alabama. You should talk to Gavin.
I think that would be great, and I think it will happen. But this is another principle of apologetics, one that I engaged in frequently and one which I see often, which is apologists for the church almost always create a different church than the one the church leaders teach to us in general conference. And then they start defending this fake church that they've created as if it is Mormonism, and then say, look at how great my defense was. Well, the problem was, that's not Mormonism. Mormonism has got to be, at least if we're looking at it, I think, at its basic roots, it's got to be what the leaders of the church are teaching us today. That's what Mormonism is. And we know that because we have to follow them and not criticize them, right? So having said all that, that's one thing. And also, another thing that was very shocking to people was in 2015, that was when the Supreme Court case came down, legalizing gay marriage, 2015, because it was right after that the church put in that policy of exclusion, and it got leaked on November 5th of 2015. Next January 2016, Russell Nelson says that was a revelation from God. It was received by Thomas S. Monson, and we were all of us there present and privileged to sustain that as a revelation from God. 3.5 years later, it's reversed, and that's a revelation, okay? That was hard for a lot of people to understand. And I can understand because apparently God resembles a dithering, somewhat senile, old man who cannot see what's going to be happening as a result of this revelation he gives to his leaders, and the pain and the agony and the trauma that it caused so many people that 3.5 years later it had to be reversed. So God contacted them again and said, hey, you know the revelation I gave you 3.5 years ago? I've been thinking, let's not do that anymore. Okay, so that is something, and that is something that happens in our own lifetime. It's not the 100.
And this is his modernist frame. Like, yeah, to some extent I understand, but to some extent I also think he's going way too far. Like, living revelation, the ability of living people to actually respond to things.
25 years it took to reverse the priesthood ban, which is not in anybody's lifetime. You actually have to study to find that out. This change, people found out in real time. That was part of their lived experience, and they don't understand how it is that God could not see the future. I mean, even 3.5 years down the road, that shouldn't be too much for God. I think it's too much for the leaders of the church, but it shouldn't be too much for God. So I was talking about that one issue. How much time do I have to talk about the other two?
Oh, you've got 3 minutes.
Great. Second one is polygamy. Because I think that President Nelson, who will have Danzel and Wendy for all eternity, you know, he's got that big block from the Salt Lake Temple, the big block of granite with his name on it. Doesn't have an end date yet, but it does have Danzel's, and it's got a place for Wendy too. I've got a feeling that if you look really closely, there's also a place for Sherry Dew. I'm just saying. I don't know that that's true. But yes, obviously, polygamy is going to be part of the eternities. It has to be. And the problem with polygamy isn't that it was a long time ago or it's a long time in the future in the celestial kingdom. The problem is that Joseph Smith practiced polygamy. He had at least 33 different wives. At least. People differ because the records were hidden so well. And, right? That's why. And so they have to figure it out. And 33 is a baseline minimum. 11 of those women were already married to other men when Joseph Smith married them. And some of the men he got out of the way by calling them, God got them out of the way, by calling them on missions to foreign countries. Some of those, at least one, if not two, were 14 years old when a 30-some-odd Joseph Smith married them. Or was it 14 or was it a few months shy of 15? I can never remember. But the problem is that when I learned about this, I was sick in my heart because I loved Joseph Smith. I revered him as a prophet. And to find out that this was actually true, by the way, good job, Fair Mormon or Fair, because they have that great website and people go to it and they're hearing all this stuff. And they, this can't be true. And they go there and they find out, yeah, it is. And then they're going to explain it away for you. It's always the yeah, but, yeah, it is true. Even Fair Mormon recognizes it. The church recognizes it. They had to put out an essay on it. And I will tell you that today when I was thinking about it, I thought about Nathan the prophet from the Old Testament.
Okay, I have to tell you, like, this has been almost 3 hours. And I'm getting tired and it's late and I have to go home. I don't think I'm going to continue this. I think we all saw what was going on, which is them talking past each other. Did you have final words to say, Roman?
I guess I'm trying to figure out what they're trying to do. It seems like they're both like this guy's afraid because these guys or these selling fear, right? Because like you're gonna be these are false shepherds, they're gonna take you into this evil Mormonism thing, and I have the real light of social justice or whatever. And then these other guys are like, no, if you leave Mormonism, it's you're doomed to a life of misery and secularism. And I wish there was like a positive vision. That seems like what Christianity is about. It's like I know that like you don't like Paul that much, but it seems like that's actually usually the Christian message. It's like you can have
I think to some
experience.
extent that is Midnight Mormons. Like their message is, hey, look, we have something really beautiful here, right? And if you leave it, what are you leaving it for? Which I think is a fine question. I think Radio Free Mormon is coming from this place of like, but it's all lies, and he's right. Like, and this is the essential problem right now, right? And it's not just within the Mormon community, but I think Mormonism, again, God created Mormons so Christians would understand that Judaism's true.
I just think there should be a positive message. I think like not necessarily like, oh, the things are going great, but that, oh, there's actually a good place to go, right? So like I don't necessarily think the world is like everyone becomes like it seems like a lot of people are Noahides, right? In a broad sense. Even like Christians, right? They did grab on to
okay,
a Jew,
but
right?
so
but like
isn't there a positive like so why aren't you a Mormon?
Why aren't I a Mormon? Because it's not
Yeah.
true. Like
exactly.
I think it's beautiful. I would but okay. There's another reason I'm not.
So the propositional matters.
To become a Mormon, but it's not true. It's like thank God would never ask me to do something that's not true, right? But I mean that's the reason, right?
Okay, so you're being propositional.
I mean, am I being propositional?
Yes.
I'm trying to think about this because I mean, yeah, I do believe there are true things, but like there are definitely ways I think about the if you see the world through God and through your religion, then you're not thinking about it propositionally. It's a tool. It's a thing you're using to look at the world.
But you're saying if it's not true, if it's not propositionally true, then I will discard it.
There's like two sides of this. So your tool, right? If you have a really good tool, right, then the tool will see like the flaws, right? You can look at the lens and you can see the scars in the lens and you can try to like polish it, right? But that's a really hard kind of weird thing to do. And so like you have to do both, right? And so like hopefully you have a good enough tool to do that. And so I think that religion is one of those tools, and hopefully you have enough religion that it'll correct itself, right?
I think I'm gonna leave. Let number one Lobster have the last word, dude. If it has good vibes, it's true.
Yeah, I don't think that.
Okay, I am ending the broadcast. I will talk to other people, you people later. Number one Lobster or anybody else, please do come on my Discord. I would love to talk to some actual Mormons. Bye.